Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Show. And as you can see, we are once again in front of the Star of Thera, which means we are once again on Singularity. And I am wanting to have a conversation. Oops. Now everybody can hear me. I want to have a conversation about everything that's been going on. There is, of course, the new Doctor Who announcement. We're going to, by the way, I'm going to actually chill out for a few minutes because my cat is behind me. And so like the green screen is going to come down probably in the next like few seconds. So we'll see. But yeah, so day one on Tuesday, we talked about and broke down the actual, like the information that we had, on HoboLeaks and the blog and all that stuff. Yesterday, I did an interview with CCP Fozzie and CCP Swift, which was, I think, very enlightening. And that will the video of that will be going on YouTube as soon as I'm done with this, because of the whole Twitch thing. I have to wait 24 hours. So, yeah. So, and then today I wanted to kind of open up the thing for a conversation between people. So if you're interested in coming on and in a cordial manner communicate your positions, we can have you jump on. Just go ahead and jump on the Discord. The channel should be open. Don't make me have to like kick people out. So, all right. With that, I'm going to unmute the audio. All right, we're going to start off by going down the line. Start off with who you are, why people should know you. Actually, I just realized we've got about 30 seconds before I think an ad is going to go off. So why don't you guys just say hi and hang out for a bit? I hit the ad thing. I didn't realize that it makes you wait like 5 minutes before the ad actually happens. Hey, welcome. Thank you. Is everybody else? Anybody else? You guys can talk now.
Hello, world. I too hate ads.
I try to get
you. When you go live, it does one the first minute, doesn't it?
I didn't think so. Well, that's what I try to do. That's what I like. I try to hit it while it's during the music. Oh no! I think it is done now. Wait, is it done? I have no idea what's happening.
Plenty of cases when you join the stream, you first get the ad, and you're like, I don't care about the ad. I want to watch the stream, darn it.
I think I figured it out. It did run the ad, and the 5 minutes was saying that that's like the cooldown before I can run an ad again, I guess. I don't even know. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it then. We're going to start at the top. Like I said, talk about who you are and what you do, and what maybe like a top level quick what your position about this whole thing is. Start with Dutch Gunner.
Oh, that's quite the list. Hi everyone, I'm Dutch Gunner. You might know me from the Artucker Research Consortium, where I regularly try to run public fleets to do all sorts of different things, and you'll occasionally see me dabble on updates and posts on the Intergalactic Summit. As far as the upcoming event, my position is that though I find it a weird crossover, I'm happy I'm open to new things, especially with the interview yesterday done between Ashtarothi, CCP Swift, and CCP Fozzie, because that cleared up a lot of potential roadblocks and concerns, and I'm just really looking forward to see what kind of new content and mechanics are going to be introduced that could be a lot of fun in future content for the game.
Very cool. Yep. All right. And next we got Nth Dimensional.
Hi, everybody. My name's Nth Dimensional, and I think Rush summed it up perfectly. Self-proclaimed #1 explorer in EVE Online. As for the event, it's my favorite one on the Citadel.
Nice. All right. I'm actually going to take a timeout and an aside that Nth Dimensional is currently doing his own campaign right now. He's very close to being a YouTube partner, right? You just need a few more subscriptions.
Yep. So it started the day at 900, and we're at like 930 now. So
All
I need
right.
70 more. So smash that
Man.
subscribe button.
Exactly. If everybody who's a viewer right now wasn't already a sub and then went over, it's free, guys. Just head on over there. It got killed. Sorry, Rush. Jeez,
Oh
I
my
have to give
God.
permission first. I have to give permission. All right, hold on. Let me turn you guys up. Actually, and you are actually pretty quiet compared to everybody else. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, let me try and fix that.
All right. So moving on though, Rushlock.
Hey everyone, I am Rushlock. I run a live help desk stream for EVE Online, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. We answer questions for new players, returning players, players coming back or going from one activity to another, and looking for how to get started. And then the rest of the time, we just chill and make money and make people on Reddit mad that we're making money playing video games. And yeah, pretty much something set up.
Okay, and what's your
Events, yeah, the events. So this is the single greatest marketing effort ever made by CCP. I understand that that's not saying a lot, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. My only concern is that players that are new to New Eden will go through the game. They'll go through the scripted railed NPE. They're going to fall off the cliff of nothingness, of knowing what to do next. I have absolutely no idea how they're going to find the actual Doctor Who content that's the only reason they're there. It's the only reason they showed up was for Doctor Who doohickeys and doodads. And it's a wide range of people and like their capabilities, but I don't think at least half of them will ever get to the actual Doctor Who content. So they won't be able to figure it out between the agency and the pop-ups.
Well, that's an interesting point. And the other two, Saren and Valamir, are more listening at the moment. So we'll just jump straight into that point. So the concern is...
disagree.
So just so that we can be clear, the concern is that the people who come in from the Doctor Who, that are attracted in from the Doctor Who, are not given the sufficient breadcrumbs to actually successfully execute the event. Is that pretty much?
Yeah, overall. I mean, there are people who will, and I'd probably say maybe even, I don't like using numbers because it's dumb and people tunnel focus on them, but I think a very large, significant number of people who come to EVE Online for the first time with no perspective and no familiarity will just get lost as soon as they're off the rail system. I'm kind of mirroring that off of just the basic new player experience with EVE Online in the first place. My perspective, right or wrong, is that the overwhelming majority of new users come on, do the NP that's scripted, whatever version we're using this year, which, by the way, I think the NP constantly gets better and better. It just doesn't matter, because when you get to the end of the rail system, it's the same cliff face at the very end of the rail, and they go off into nothingness. I presume sometime in the quote-unquote near future, we'll see career agents get replaced or phased or something to like some kind of extension to the rail. But even when that happens, the rail will still end with a rail. But depending on what they learn in that rail system is the only thing that's going to better prepare them for the severity of the cliff drop at the end of the rail. I think the Doctor Who is just going to like magnify it or highlight it very specifically, like a very large influx of new users, and then where'd they all go?
Right. And you said you disagree, so go on.
That's right. I disagree with you, Rush. We'll start with the agreements. From the NPE to the start of the event is a problem, right? That's going to obviously make some people not get to the event. And then also after the event, to what do they do? However, after looking like through what that event actually is, it's very similar to like low-level Abyssal content. And if anything, I see new players doing the NPE, somehow getting to the event, enjoying that for 2 weeks, and then hopping essentially straight into like level 0 or level 1 Abyssals. And then they can, have fun in Abyssals for weeks, months, years, however long, and slowly grow into more other areas of the game.
I see the event definitely being like a training ground, absolutely, for like there are many reasons why they went the abyssal route, and I think that's one of the like side effects or one of the positive perks that kind of came about of it. They're gonna be pre-trained to do abyssal content or a version of it, right? And then they'll be like, well, that was fun, and now it's gone. What do I? Oh, it's still here. I can go into something like that. They'll have a bit of familiarity with that piece of content. But you're talking about the ones who actually make it over the initial hurdle, right?
Right. Like, how are we going to get people from the NPE into a cruiser, into the event, or alternatively into like a Heron and into the exploration side? That's going to be the crucial piece that hopefully CCP has some plan for. I don't think they do, but we'll find out.
And when you say that, like I agree with it, and I don't think either of us are doing that from like a negative, I don't know, shit posting for lack of a better term, position. It's just like we see the tech and the tools and the utilization and like in the last X number of years,
I see an opportunity to
exactly.
create content that can help people, and that's where I feel that it will be most needed.
We're going to do it because CCP won't do it, but you and I will only catch, and the other content creators will only catch so many.
We can only get so much.
Well, so I have a couple thoughts about that. Dutch, you want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to chip in that with this event, we might be facing an even bigger hurdle, and that's going to be the player base that isn't happy. So if this new player come in and they start asking questions about the Doctor Who event or the new event, they might be receiving the rather nastier side of the community at times, and therefore be pushed out before they even get started.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see, like, depending on what, like, how far will the Mad Boys go? Right? Are they going to go form up and go
into
rookie systems? Yeah. Hell
Don't
no!
come here.
Get out!
Run away! Get out while you still can. Oh god, that'd be. I think the bigger question is: so if people do go out to seek out information, will they instead find this deluge of the fact that everybody apparently hates Eve right now, right? Like if, let's say you're brand new and your way of fixing things is like, oh, I'll just see what's on the subreddit about it. It must be like on the subreddit because that's the big thing for right now. Oh my God, what's happening to this game, right? Like I can definitely see that where in the process of searching for the information about the event, they would find a whole lot of information about how mad people are.
Yeah, Mad Boys will definitely detract players from the game.
Yeah.
But we can hopefully mitigate that as much as possible.
So I do have a couple points, though, to Rushlock's concern. First of all, they said that there is going to be that full screen pop-up, and clicking on that does bring them to the agency, and the NPE reinforces the agency the entire time. So they actually have a pretty good likelihood, especially if you're joining for the Doctor Who, you're going to click on the splash screen, right? You're not just going to click it off. You're going to, oh, this is what I'm here for. Click, right? Or at least very likely. So between that and the fact that, there will be guides up and people will seek that out, which will actually help key them into people like you guys and myself and all that stuff who are making these guides. And those YouTube channels or Twitch streams or whatever. But also the thing to think about is CCP is signaled pretty strong. We talk about the new MPE, and CCP gets a lot of flack for like continually redoing the MPE, but a lot of that is them learning, right? So the Inception MPE was good, but set up the wrong expectations for the game. They experimented with different kinds of MPEs. They did a lot of A/B testing. The current MPE is incredibly short. It's very, very short. It teaches very core concepts and gets them out the door. We know that there's going to be changes to the career agents, and they've even said that there's going to be the new mining tutorials that extend from the MPE. And this is what I think is actually a really good idea, because what you don't need is a long tutorial. What you need is a short tutorial that teaches you the basics, and then opportunities that branch off of that teach you how that thing works and then gets you started with it, right? So in that regard, could this event that is specifically geared for brand new players doing relic sites, which is like one of the safest things and something you get taught in the career agents, and then some very basic combat stuff in the end, is that not just a stopgap like experiment with that exact concept. Could this be considered a test for a new career agent paradigm as it tests early skills?
Yeah, definitely. And you said, we'll call it the word of the day, the opportunities, because they have capital O. They have that system in place, right, for new
Right.
players. I wonder if they can leverage that system for this event. Like, because you need to get in a T1 cruiser, can they set it some up after the NPE, like get in a T1 cruiser, and maybe it like tells you how to do that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, like that does there. So back to Rushlock's point, one of the issues is that there are pieces of the game, like it doesn't actually teach you fitting ships really. It doesn't teach you some of these basic things. There, you could say that there are fits, academy fits on the community fittings, but I've never met a new bro who has actually found the community fittings on their own.
Right.
So,
right. And anyone that reaches out to someone is going to get a better fitting than the community fitting.
well, but my point is that it might as well not exist for how available it is to people. Nobody knows to suggest it. Nobody knows to look for it. Right.
It's a lack of intuitiveness, right? Like the whole, I don't question the agency's effectiveness. You mentioned like the splash thing was going to, lead Doctor Who people to the agency. I agree. They'll make it to the agency. And I think the agency, the way it's designed and set up is very high quality, just like the AIR NPE. Their quality is there. I'm concerned about effectiveness, throughputs, like how much material is lost. In this case, material is players. How much material is lost in this pipeline that has a lot of holes in it, and they're just dumping, the overwhelming majority of the material out of the pipe because there's so many holes in it. And when you mentioned the mining thing, that's actually very encouraging because when that deploys, I'm interpreting this as like a choose your own adventure. Like maybe you'll do the part 1 NPE that we have now, and then you'll come out of it and initially we'll have like the mining option will be there, but maybe as other modules come out, they'll be like, or do you want to get into this, or do you want to get into that? And maybe those players will go on this rail system that, while still a rail system, it at least has a focus and a flavor to it. So at the end of your chosen path, you have at least more understanding and learning than we've ever seen before in past iterations of just welcome to Eden, go talk to these career agents, have a nice life.
Right. However, I want to bring up the idea that like one of the issues that MPE and really the new, like we're going to call it early game experience, right? Because calling it the MPE at a certain point becomes like confusing because we're not talking about like the little tutorial. But most new players that I know that quit do so not out of anger or frustration, but confusion, boredom, and lack of direction, right? So you can do the career agents, but like, why? And even if you do, when you're done, well, now what? Right? Yep. Like these are the questions that ends up causing people to fall off. So what's interesting about this is that the players that join because of this crossover are intrinsically motivated to complete and succeed in these tasks, which means they will go through the effort to sort out what it takes to do it. They will figure out how to scan down and hack a relic site. They will figure out how to, build the filaments. They'll figure out how to make a T1 cruiser that can kill it because they want the stuff. You get what I'm saying?
This is like a Y versus WoW, or how? Sorry, a Y versus how situation, right? They know they'll figure. You're saying they'll figure out how to do things on their own, relatively or generally speaking. They need a why.
If they're motivated enough, they'll solve the problems,
okay.
Right?
Right.
Who is they though? Like your average user or your top 10%, your top 30%? These numbers are arbitrary. But
games challenge people, right? Is the issue? It would be nice if Eve was still a more learnable game, but my point is that if they are joining because of this crossover, they are far, far more likely to not just be like, oh, I don't get it, and leaving. They are because they want the thing. Maybe they would, because if the game itself doesn't hook them at all, then they don't really care about the digital item in it. But there are a lot of people that are going to be joining this game, from what I saw in conversations, that are joining and excited to fight Daleks. And so they're going to do whatever it takes to be able to do that in a game, right? So my point is that people who have a reason to do it, an intrinsic reason, a serious personal reason to succeed at a task in a video game, are more likely to do what it takes to actually, get good or sort it out or, understand the systems enough to do so, rather than somebody who's just checking it out because they saw an ad that sounded kind of cool or they read about BTAC-R. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Chicken
they
in
want
chat
that
put a good.
cake, and they're willing to bake it.
I think Chicken put a good nail on the head too. With it's like asking a 6-year-old, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And they blue screen you. Yeah, they just blink and they can't fathom what you're asking them. And that's how the new players come out of the NPE and career agents, like you said before, Ash. Okay, now what? What's my? We get that Eve is a sandbox and it's choose your own adventure, but they need a little more push.
Exactly. Yeah. CCP has been hesitant to give people the reason why they're doing something or whatever, to give people the freedom to do whatever they want, because I guess people feel like if CCP justifies anything, then that's them saying that you have to do that one thing, which isn't true. But the problem with the idea of saying do whatever you want is you don't even understand what you want to do yet. You haven't been given any goals. You haven't been given any directions to go. You don't have different roads to choose. It's just a giant field and you don't know which way are the towns. You could walk forever or just, get bitten by a snake.
Yeah. Too many unknown unknowns.
Right.
And
this is beyond
yeah.
Decision paralysis. Sorry, Dutch.
No, then again, if they're working on the NPE, after that they've already mentioned that working on the career agent. So wouldn't it be really amazing that once they have the different career agents all implemented in whatever new shape or form they're going to be, if the player comes out of the start and then all of a sudden it's okay, what are you interested? What would you like to do? And then there's the multiple options. And if they go for one, they are directed towards that specific branch of the career agents, whether it's exploration, mining, or agents for combat or courier or anything else. Because then you can do what you want to do, but here are some guidelines to give you a general sense of direction based on what you're interested in doing and having a list of what you can do.
Like a filter, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a bare bones kind of sense, that is how it is right now.
That's what I was going to say.
Good at what it is,
right? Because it's not finished, right? We might be on different pages on this, but I assume
years ago.
Oh, I was talking about the update. I'm assuming career agents are getting replaced with a modular choose your own adventure system. I don't know that. I'm just assuming it.
Well, so I want to bring this back to the original conversation, but first, Jack, are you joining in?
In what way would you like me to join in?
Do you expressing your opinion? If you want to join in, introduce yourself and what you do and what your overall stance on this is. Otherwise, we can if you're just listening, then that's fine too.
I'm kind of just listening.
Cool. All right. Sorry about that. I can't do background chat right now because I have to show who's talking and things, so I have to just ask you straight up. I can't check other channels because of that. Sorry. It'll have to be right here. But I do want to bring this back and say that one of the things that it really alarms me about this event is the fact that not just does the agency need to be up in front and center, but the idea that the buddy code, which would be such a pivotal thing for this, these people are going to make their accounts before they have access to the buddy code potentially, especially since nobody's going really being an ambassador for the whole thing because both sides are angry for various reasons. But
is that a thing? Have Uvians freaked out? I'm basing it off of YouTube comments.
We're gonna get.
EVE Online. Okay.
I'll go into that when we go into the NFT situation. So,
Oh
no.
my. Developments.
Now, so, but what do you guys think about that? Because like, I believe that if they want this to be Nubro friendly, this is like they need that 1 million SP unallocated, right? Like, and they haven't even put that into the marketing or anything. They haven't. People are going to jump in, and it's going to be too late.
So the ones that make their way to us will get it because they'll open a GM ticket, say hi, thank you, have a great day, and move on. But the overwhelming majority though are falling into the trap that you're talking about, where they're going to start off day one already 3.5 weeks behind.
Right.
That's the entire nature of the video I put out was like, welcome Whovian. Here's how you can be an elite Whovian, not behind all the, not be 3.5 weeks behind all the plebeian Whovians. Here's your trick. Get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a very
That's actually a really good video to make.
Like, I have a whole video about submitting a GM ticket for when you make your account.
That's true.
I didn't know that. I made one too.
So again, it is like you have to know that these problems are there, and so like obviously CZB can help that, and like eliminate the buddy code and just give everyone fucking 1 million skill points.
Right.
DM me all those links so that way I can add them in on the YouTube video comments or description.
Yeah, but that's the tricky part with the buddy code. The same because you need an existing player, and if CCP starts providing them, there needs to be somebody else attached to it. So that's just going to create a lot of discontent where either players say, hey, it's going to a approved player who now gets benefits based on how many people use that specific code, or if they say we use a CCP related character, then other players are going to say, hey, now you're cutting into our market of getting people to use our buddy code. So it's
I mean, but like, does anyone care?
You can't do it right.
Well, think about what we're saying. Like, chat's saying cut the code, and what I think Dutch is saying, and I agree with this, is it's not the code that needs to be cut, it's the SP portion of it needs to be shifted to just standard new account procedure, because there's plenty of, like, how many times do I tell people use a referral code? I don't care whose you use. Yeah, I'd like the credit or the clout or whatever, like,
or the Marshall.
The hundreds of
new players. 100%.
We'll hit those numbers anyway. But the real benefit, exactly what In said, is making sure you guys get what you're supposed to be getting out of it. Otherwise, missing out that 3.5 weeks is huge.
Right. Counterpoint. I don't think so. The issue here is that a new player that has no connection to any other player, given 1 million free SP, isn't going to know what to do with it. Could be, The point is that if you have another person that you're in contact with, then you have 1 million free SP to allow you to like do things with that person, right? So the solution isn't to get rid of the 1 million SP. It's to make it so that if you don't get it via the buddy code, you get it by joining your first player corporation.
I don't like the idea of it just being in their day one balance. Yeah.
It's whatever the first time you make first contact with real people in a meaningful way.
What do people do when you give them money? They spend it. What are you going to do when they give you SP? You're going to spend it. And what did you benefit from either of those? Absolutely nothing.
Right. But if you get it right as you're joining the organization, then that gives you the SP to spec into whatever that organization wants you to do.
Or
yeah.
All that good stuff.
Sorry, my cat is
Lala's not wrong. I just say, yeah, exactly. People are too dumb to manage their own resources. I don't know how else to. I'm the cynic.
Well, again, my point is that like I don't want the buddy code to not give 1 million SP. I just want another way to recover an alternative route to it.
But I got you.
So like Echoes does have something like that where they give you a chunk of SP by joining a corporation, and that gets you to at least like as one of the issues is that as an early player, you don't want to join a corporation because you feel like, oh, well, I need to learn the game before I join, a clan or whatever. I don't want to be a burden. But by putting that kind of benefit on joining a corporation, it encourages the person to at least join somebody. And most of those will probably be like not anything. but a lot of them will be, right? They'll either join a meaningful corporation, or at least this will get them looking at corporation interface or anything like that.
Can I add one important caveat?
Sure.
Like, this only works once per account, because
Yeah,
otherwise people are going to farm the sweet
No.
bejesus out of it.
No, this is the one. This is the one. Like, so it's basically you get 1 million skill points the first time you either activate with a buddy code or join a player corporation.
Quick question, only because only stress I don't care one way or the other about this, but to clarify for chat, are we going to do an armchair game development block
No,
here,
we're going to move
or-
on now.
'cause your original point you were asking was about the code, right? Like you're like, how do we
Correct.
manage codes and whatnot? Gotcha.
Yeah. And it seems frustrating to me. I think that the point that we're making here, both earlier and now, is are we properly preparing these people to actually interface with this event, knowing that they only have 3 weeks and all that stuff, and be successful at it?
Are we? Yes. Is
Yeah,
CCP? Nah.
Who's the we in that one exactly?
I'm sorry. I meant like I was saying like that's what I feel is the question that we're kind of going over right now, or that's the point that the overarching point that we're making is questioning whether or not players or the new players will be properly prepared to do what they need to do. Does that sound about right?
Oh, I mean, you're asking the question, but like Nth and I think on this one are lockstep. Like, nope, no. If we as CCP, no.
Right.
If we as the community, it's like we're bailing all the water we can, boys.
Let me put it a different way. We are questioning whether or not the players that come in will be prepared.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter if it's whether or not they find the agency or whether or not they have the skill points to do it. Either way, I think that we universally believe that it could be very possible that these players are not going to be prepared for what they are expected to do. All right. So I guess one of the questions I do want to ask is instanced hacking sites. Thoughts?
Love them.
Really?
Because, yes, specifically, I thought about this, because they are abyssally timed hacking sites.
Is it time?
So the
Or is it like
challenge
30
there
minutes?
Yeah, it's 30
isn't-
minutes.
So it
For
doesn't
the
matter.
easy one. I assume that the harder one's 20 minutes, but
Yeah.
apparently there's
He said
12
30
cans.
minutes.
Oh, okay.
Even so, we'll say 30 minutes, 12 cans for a brand new player. It's a time challenge.
How many
I like
cans?
that.
How many cans?
12. is
Oh
the
my
number I
So
God.
got.
there's multiple tiers of these sites.
Okay.
There's I think there's 3 hacking sites and 4 combat sites. Is that what
That
it is?
is what was mentioned in the
Yeah.
interview.
And so, like, it's what you say, Ash, about Abyssals, is that it demands your attention. And, assuming that, like, that's how it actually is and, like, it's well balanced and whatnot, I do like that it is a different challenge. It is not the PvP challenge that you have to fight other players. It's fighting time.
So do we know if does the Who Abyssal, does it kick them out? Because it's not going to kill them. So like, does it just kick them out or what?
think it
Based
kills
on
them.
what they talked about yesterday, is there's still the time limit, like with regular Abyssal runs. Time up, you're not out, you dead.
Yep.
But at the same time, the border are a lot more forgiving. Instead of you're moving out of the border, you start taking damage. Now you're moving across the border, and you're going to end up on the other side. Like with the old Arcane Pac-Man, you go out through the top and you end up at the bottom of the screen. Something like that with the arena.
Does the player have a choice of leaving before the cans are all finished?
I would expect so, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. There. So from
We'll
my
find out.
understanding, if I saw it correctly, there is a thing that basically, if you get within proximity of it, it sucks you back into New Eden. So there's effectively a gate that you can just get activated any time.
So the reason I was excited about there being 12 cans is practice. Like whenever people come to me for Explo stuff, they're like, fits, ISK, skills, okay, out. Nothing I can tell you is going to help you more than watching my little playlist of like nuances that the game doesn't teach you. And then you have to practice. I thought they were going to like pop a filament. Like all the events we've had so far have been go to a data site, hack 1 can, and then go away, which is fine for the events the way they are. But for a new player-oriented thing, giving them 12 cans to hack, I love it. Like that's going to give them so many opportunities to learn the actual task and not make them jump through 5 other tasks or 10 minutes of hoop jumping for 30 seconds of hacking practice. Now they're going to get
Repetition is key.
all that extra time. I like it.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the idea of the industry side of things, where they're collecting a resource in all of these different sites and they build the keys for the other one? That feels like they really wanted to make it like, it feels to me like there is a story throughout, right? Like as in like a player story. The person that goes, finds the relic site, hacks it, finds the first key, goes in, finds the blueprints, is able to build the second key, and then goes into there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily that you have to go buy stuff on the market. You can sell your excess there or whatever for the other task. But it really feels like the whole thing is designed to be a journey for the player.
Yeah,
I
you're
like the
progressing
setup.
through each of the levels.
Well, tasks, like it's a narrative, or it's very clear to me intent from CCP, like we want to get this new player to be made aware, or even like I said, like we'll be doing the event. Maybe somebody who's never done industry before, whether a new player or not. Here's how industry works in a very simple, basic way. And now you've been exposed to the interface. You've been given a very simple task. You didn't have to wait 5 hours for manufacturing to complete. It was just bang, bang, here's your filament. Now go have fun. Like, oh, I didn't remember that's a crafting thing. That's crafting in Eve. And, someone will make that connection who's not familiar with it.
What I really like is that it's noober friendly, as in when you just get started, it's very accessible. And because you need different sources for different things to move forward, it gives you an incentive to keep going. And it at the same time drives home the point like, hey, you can't find everything you're looking for in a singular space. You'll have to start looking for other places and get your resources through other means, either by doing it yourself, getting in touch with other people to work together, or getting to the market.
Yeah.
Go over that again? Like, what do you mean by, like, celebrated, or? I think you lost sound. They're talking about you're muted. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let me start over then. What I'm saying is that every person who, rather than going through the career agents and ending up thinking that they should go start mining an adventure as a way of like starting their journey, instead going through this path and deciding to become an explorer as an early player, that's a huge win. Every player that makes that decision, because that route feels like so much more of a successful route for a new player to be, hooked by the game, in my opinion.
So to clarify that, are you saying that like the fact that they went the exploration route is the victory, or the fact that we just got them to do something other than the lowest hanging fruit of mining as a new player was a victory?
What I'm saying is that if they then go on to continue to do exploration, because this got them started in that direction and got them like thinking that this is the thing to do, that's the victory.
As opposed to shooting a laser at a rock.
Right. Because the exploration, like career agents, as you pointed out, there's only like 2 different cans that you get hacked the whole time. There's a few times the scanning. And really, the only thing that the player learns from it, they're exposed to a lot of concepts, but the only thing they learn is that exploration is really confusing and they don't understand it. So giving this as an opportunity with the motivation to want to figure it out, and then they go and become, getting relatively decent at hacking by the end of it, they're not going to then go off and become a miner or go off and like do missions or whatever, because they found they're now decent enough at hacking and exploration that they now want to go find other things to go see and explore and, doodads to collect in New Eden.
Can I just play devil's advocate for a moment?
Say again?
Can I just play devil's advocate for a moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the things, and this is me not jumping to the defense of anything or anyone, but one of the things people will always look for in a game is, what can I do from the get-go where I might not run in too many difficulties? And mining is the most accessible activity at any moment in the game. Once you go for exploration, you could run into the points where either somebody else beat you to the site, you found it, and it got cleaned except for the one token item of carbon. And that makes it a really disappointing experience. While with mining, you're putting in the effort and you have a clear visual correlation between what you're doing and what you're getting. So I can see why mining would be a first referenced activity. It's just that some people just get stuck with it being as if it's the only opportunity from the get-go.
Yeah, the issue with early mining, I would say, is that it doesn't ever really push you into anything else. Like, you can literally spend your entire EVE career, like, 2 jumps out from G to just mining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which is EVE, right?
that's why I was saying playing devil's advocate, because
Right.
you want to give people some sort of satisfaction for their efforts. And having a direct correlation between doing something and seeing something adding your cargo bait with value is a safe way for you're doing something and you're getting something in return. With exploration, you could be in a bad luck streak, and that could be very offsetting.
I would argue that safe is not the best way to engage a player and get them interested to stick in with the game.
It's to kill.
No. I'm not talking about a safe activity. I'm talking about
Effort.
a safe way where effort results in something.
Right. Well, yeah, that's why they have 3 weeks of an event to do that. That's my whole point, right? When this event is over, they'll end up having a bit of a nest egg from the event, and they now are comfortable with exploration enough that they go on to do it more, which, in my opinion, like from what I've seen, new players that get encouraged to get into exploration and understand it, and that is their entrance to it, are significantly more successful than new players that are directed into the Abyss or missions or mining, because all of those are either overwhelming or boring. Exploration feels like the correct amount of like excitement, progress, and it, generally speaking, the idea of like things going wrong or expendability and stuff like that is kind of baked into it. So it better teaches the like a successful methodology for EVE Online, as opposed to mining and mission running, which is about slow and steady progress, in which any loss is a setback that can be equated in time. And that teaches people to play the game differently from the very beginning.
To play more into, I think what Dutch was talking about, like, so my starting EVE story is high-sec mining, and I'd watch TV or I'd hop on comms. That was EVE for me for like at least 6 months when I started the game. And there was no boredom. There was no I hate this activity. It was like an after work relaxation, feet up, TV on, comms on, chill type of a thing. And then what got me into doing other activities? The people I played with and my own personal interest. So like where, and this is what I want to ask you guys for like opinions, I guess, where does the burden lie? Is it CCP's responsibility to push the player into another activity? Or is it the player's responsibility to, of their own agency, decide, you know what? There's more in this game, I want to check it out.
I would say it's a mixed thing. On the one hand, the players have a really big responsibility to look at things, look at other things, inform amongst others. And the only or the main responsible for CCP is to keep a look at the content that's available and make sure that it doesn't become stagnant, and that there are still exciting new things or variations that challenge or excite people. But it's mostly up to the player base, in my opinion.
That might be a better way of phrasing it. Like, where does the weight, how much weight falls on each set of shoulders? And Chicken and Chat, I think, put a good way of it. Like, it's up to CCP to give opportunity, but it's up to the players to make a choice.
And that's kind of what I was suggesting
say
at the very beginning. Sorry, and this is what I was referring to in the very beginning when I mentioned that, like, in their effort to not push people to do something, they ended up giving people no motivations at all, right?
Yeah, that makes a good point. Yeah.
offering the
I'd put more
opportunity
weight on
and
CCP
not, they don't have to bite on it.
incentivize.
Sorry, go on.
I was just saying I would put more weight on CCP to help incentivize trying new different things, whether that's through like expert systems or events or however you want to do it. I do think CCP does need to help people do other things that might be outside their comfort zone.
Right. Offering somebody the choice gives them the choice to say yes or no. Not even giving them the offering of the choice, they don't even know to ask or that they have that choice at all. So
I want CCP to give them an offer they can't refuse.
I mean, I want to give them a series of offers, one of which they'll want to accept.
I do think they're on the right path, though, because with this new event, it's clearly also keeping the newer players in mind. And with all the other events, you can really see that the difficulty rating is going up over time, up to the point where you see newer players starting to interact with it and then basically get pushed out because a longer player. Are you okay, Ash? Because you're getting mauled.
My cat is in his playful mode, and when I don't play with him, he's just like, fine, I'll go after your arm. So this is where we're at right now. Keep going. It's fine. There's more to entertain people.
But now it's things where it's been confirmed yesterday with the interview as well that the rewards aren't going to be that interesting for the longer term players.
Right.
And because there are different sites like 3 for exploration and 4 for combat, that means that you'll probably also have different difficulty ratings with different rewards for completing them. So you're really helping the new players get started, have a goal and a progression where they could say, hey, when I started, I was at this and I struggled with that, but look, now I'm even one tier further and I'm doing fine. This is fun. Let's keep going.
The nomenclature of the filaments themselves seem to suggest that that is true. I'm going to take this cat into the other room real quick. Keep talking.
So what was our original topic on this subject? It was about new player agency, or were we back on the Who thing?
The actual first point that brought all this on was instanced hacking, good or bad.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
you were asked about the instance. Like, is there an issue with it being instance? And that's going to open a whole can of worms with chat, because there's going to be all those people who are like, instance content in this game is the bane and it's going to kill it. And every person who goes into an instant piece of content is one less person I can go gank. And and that to me, that whole fallacy never holds any water. Like, every person who's in an instance piece of content, that person, if they weren't in that instance piece of content, would definitely have been out on an anomaly somewhere, AFK, and watching TV while I was sneaking up on them to blow them up. Like, to me, it goes the same conversation of the why'd they work on this piece of content instead of this piece of content. Like, they're not swappable like that in my mind.
What I like with the instant contents, the way it works with Abyssals, is you still have that point of entry and exit. And there's plenty of ganking happening around the Abyssal entry and exit symbols where people come back and get blapped. So the fact that they're instanced and therefore they're not targets, that kind of falls flat. And at the same time, because it's instance, it's something people can really dedicate their full focus to. Therefore, the difficulty can be that much more higher, and that opens up so much more opportunities for fun and interesting content in the upcoming future. So I'm not against it. I kind of like how it's been implemented so far.
With the entrance and exit system, it's like people can put eyes on their exits if they really wanted to be quote unquote safe. How do you feel about CCP's, I don't want to say position, location in that equation is being viewed as like the evil corporation, like, oh, they made you spend money on one more account or else your Abyssal runs and your Blink Fit are not going to be quote unquote safe. Like, do you put that burden on the players? I was going to say, yeah. Like, is that the player burden? Is that the CCP?
I would argue that if you're running at a point that is a real threat and something that you need to do to mitigate that threat, you're probably making enough money to have two accounts.
It's just another module, just another piece of ammo.
But you'll see those posts, right? You'll be like, sure, this activity requires that I do this. And it's like, you don't have to. You ought to, because alt solve all problems, but no one's putting a gun to your head. Like, you want to risk it.
it's funny because
Can
I hear
bring in
both.
something else instead of just doing everything yourself by bringing in another account?
Exactly.
Watch it. Have a friend, have somebody
Uh-huh.
in the corporate, have somebody in your alliance. I mean, it's an MMO. It's supposed
Talk
to
to
have
other people. That's crazy talk, you know?
it makes the entire game so much more enjoyable. Hell,
Do you want me to tell somebody I'm going to be out here in a 2 billion ISK Gila and be my eyes? They're going to gank me. That's going to be the person's counterpoint, right?
So my question is,
Okay, let me
what's the
bring
difference?
something back. Right back in the days, I've been on the receiving end of a terror covert ops hot drop campaign. It didn't stop me from going out, and I was in the only corporation in that alliance that didn't have a massive drop in morale. Why? Because we were an active group of people communicating and talking with each other, and we actually had a blast throughout the entire terror campaign. So the social aspect of EVE Online being an MMO has so much to add on your gaming experience. No matter if you're a long-time player or a short-term player, whether you want to chill or whether you really want to push it out there and put your names on the board as one of the top PvP or groups, persons, or whatever. Like the social aspect is so important. So why should you put everything out by getting another account and doing it that way, just out of fear that others might screw you over? If that happens, find a better group. Like there are so many trustworthy groups out there that really make your gaming experience so much more enjoyable instead of going at it alone.
Do you think it's an Eve
Because
thing,
the
though?
other
Like,
guy has 3 alts, so I need 3 alts too. If he
I-
can fly a Cinnable and a Saber, what am I gonna do in just a, I don't know, Vexer?
would you guys think that there's a decline in people networking socially within the game to accomplish objectives?
To a degree.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to circle this back into
decline,
the.
just
players. Like
a
some
slight
people
downtick
take it
of some
up and
sort.
others don't.
I want to take this topic and anchor it back to the Doctor Who thing because the actual combat sites themselves
The duos,
can be
right?
ran as a single person, but are also capable of being ran by 2 people. And given the fact that it is T1 only and no faction ships, it does kind of limit your power level to the point where it may encourage you to bring a friend if you can.
It doesn't limit the modules and it doesn't limit my SP.
Nope.
Correct.
It's something where you could combine experienced players with newer players, and if that means that you as a more experienced player have to carry a bit more, so much more the better. I mean, look, you're the big bro, the big girl, the big sister, sorry. Why not do that? It makes it also the more rewarding, either because of thanks from the newer player or because you're helping somebody or because you're both pulling it off.
And 2 things about that. One, hopefully you're not going to just like leave them out to dry. So pretty quickly they will be contributing because you can teach them how to play as you're doing it together. But also like playing games are just fun. Like the coordination with another human being is a kind of fun, right? I always like to liken it to Overcooked, right? The tasks in Overcooked are mind-numbingly simple on its surface, and some of the levels, at least, you could probably do by yourself, but that wouldn't be that interesting. It is the coordination with the other person that is required that makes that exciting and interesting. So, by the same way, I think that is a good thing to encourage with its design. But again, you don't have to, though. If you want to just solo it and you don't give a crap, then you can.
It's not just CCP, but like, do you think CCP or studios in general can do things, and if so, what, to encourage that mentality to kind of reestablish or grow again, where people have more the mindset of, I need to network with other people to play the game together, to enjoy it more, versus, oh, I'll just do it myself, make an alt. Because technology-wise, go back 15 years, it was less likely that you were going to make an alt account because you were more incentivized to network, because running a second account, running a second monitor wasn't as common. And now it's, who doesn't have a monitor set up and running like that? And the barrier came down for multi-boxing versus it's easier to multi-box than to deal with people.
And that's why we should outlaw Eve Window or whatever it's called.
This does actually seem like a very EVE Online specific problem, though. Most MMOs have group up mechanics, even, public areas where people come together and work together and form groups. Even
all
Eve
that's for the same
Echoes.
purpose, right? To make it easier to
Right. But even Eve Echoes player, like when I was in there were people forming small groups to go run the harder anomalies or whatever in nullsec. It was just an expectation that, you form little groups to go do the thing. EVE Online, the player base in EVE Online has developed this process by which they solve all the problems with alts, which is actually not a behavior that we see in almost any other MMO I can think of.
I mean, it's
Can
also a
I
degree
bring
of
in
just like
two
how
clear
Eve
examples?
plays. So because like, let's take Final Fantasy 14 for example.
Well-
You're not going to run two characters in like a raid because there's too much to do.
Right.
Whereas like Eve, there's relatively not too much to do. Yes, you can fly your ship a lot better if you're focusing solely on it, but you can fly it good enough and get a whole lot more power by just running an alt. It's like, to a degree, it's just the nature of the beast of the game.
Right. But also I feel like it's a methodology that we've kind of learned as our community, and so we continue to apply it. I'm going to send it over to Dutch.
I'm just going to give two real clear examples of where it basically was done right, in my opinion, with specifically related to Eve. Sunshine Incursions, Draglavian Invasions. You have you have different sites that have different requirements, and the more rewarding and challenging ones, you're best off just getting more people. You've seen this multitude of communities spring up just to run the Sancha sites, and with chapter 1 and 2 to run the conduits, either in small groups or medium-sized groups. And then with chapter 3, things took on a completely different size on the social aspect.
No one?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll take it. Everybody in silence agrees.
No, that sounds good.
Right.
Mhm.
But so the issue is that EVE Online is also an inherently more paranoid game than other games, right? Like, even if a kind of PvE that you could do with somebody else was relatively safe, the new player doesn't know how to differentiate that, and therefore doesn't know how to feel safe, even if it is safe. Additionally, this has got me thinking the exact opposite, which is that if we're going through a trace to another universe, I'm just going to guess that Concord doesn't have very much influence in the Whovian universe, which is going to make it nullsec.
You don't
So
think Sorrow's already there?
how many cruiser on cruiser combat betrayals are we going to see during this cycle?
Well,
I
it's
wonder.
probably
Yeah,
going to
a
happen.
friend.
Like it's probably going to happen, but I think it's going to be very counterintuitive in the longer run, especially if you're going for the more difficult sites. Like, yeah, you got to kill, and you shot yourself in the foot. Congrats.
Well,
I mean, it's like when that juicy piece of loot drops. I mean, for this event, it's probably not going to happen. But say that juicy piece of loot drops, and you're like, oh, all I got to do is kill this Caracal friend who's already in structure.
so my question though, is, does CCP know that and want it? Because, like, we know there's the whole pivotal moment thing, but often, when you get ganked or whatever, it's very confusing. Going into a combat site with somebody, being invited to a thing, going into the combat site and being betrayed in there, that'll, again, this is all about motivation, right? Like, they
do
learn
love
how to
that.
play because of this. They stay and learn to get better because of the betrayal.
I think that CCP is very much aware of the overall nature of EVE players. At the same time, I'm also confident that if a new player this happens to a new player and they actually reach out like, hey, this happened, what the hell? a lot of people are going to say, that happened? Oh, that's a dick move. Come on, we'll get you back in the saddle and start again.
Exactly.
Like that's going to happen just as likely.
Why not both? Like, I want to be the person
Yeah.
who shot them and then turn around and help them. Like, I see
Yeah,
that. I see
and
word
like, if you
content
get
flashing in
killed,
my eye.
Isn't that how a fair amount of recruiting goes? Like, they
Right.
kill somebody, they start talking, give some pointers, and either invite them instantly or invite them down the road.
Or even still, like you pointed out, basically anybody you run into, if you tell them your story, they'll get mad for you, and that now you have a grudge and support in that, your own personal Rocky journey, right? Like Q montage. I mean, isn't there like one of the trailers is literally this?
Yeah, pretty much. So like I do love this concept, but CCP needs to, like, if the filament works, I guess, like the Abyssal Proving Grounds, and just put you in with a random other T1 cruiser, and you're like,
No,
you
that'd be
can
bad.
go fight this.
I actually did think about that last night while I was playing some Final Fantasy at the end of the day. But it might be interesting if they did that where it was random, not let them kill each other, but like you randomly do an event site, or you do an event site with a relatively random other person, but then after the event site is over, basically you're given the option to friend that person, or at least open up a combo
that
with them.
works too, right? A friendly version of it.
Yeah.
Have some kind of recent players.
Then it'd be funny if somebody figures out how to. Hey, we're getting off the track to theory crafting again. So, what do you guys think about the introduction of the Whovian items to the Eve universe? That was one of the things that I highlighted as the thing that stuck in my craw the most.
I'm gonna say they're fun little trinkets, the same as what they did in previous years with the collectibles. For example, the part where they make mimic item names like the boot.ini. Like they just look at major things and they make a collectible item out of it. And it's a collectible, and I think this, at least to me, this is something very similar. Like it's a fun collectible little dude that doesn't have any actual impact in the game.
Yeah,
there's plenty of precedent for silly trinkets and whatnot already.
That's true, but I would argue so. Boots.ini has the same model as just another piece of clothing. So if, first of all, like nobody sees anybody's feet in this game, but even if you did, then it would be indistinguishable from somebody who had just the normal item. Whereas this, when somebody puts it in their portrait, now it's, very, very visible. Whereas everything else is kind of very hidden.
Trinkets.
Say again?
You're talking about the clothing items as opposed to the trinkets.
Correct. I'm talking about like the scarf and the bow tie suit.
I mean,
well, we've had new space open up multiple times. We had it with the drone lands, we had it with the wormholes, we had it with Abyssal. What's to say this is just some previously unencountered thing with items of clothing that are specifically related to that part? It's oh, we don't have that. That looks fun. I'll take it with me. And other people go, where did you get that? Well, I found it there. And can I get there? Yeah, not anymore. Oh, shoot. But it's clothing. It could be as big of a deal as you want to make about it. But at the end, it really comes down to how far do you want to take it. And if people don't go along to that degree, and that's perfectly fine. I don't see the majority of the issue. Like, I can understand the outrage with the mixing of the PIs, but game-wise, they're collectible doodads. That's it.
And also consider that New Eden apparently doesn't have any dresses or real skirts. So, like, I don't know, fashion can be different and weird.
That's fair. And I concede that the 11th Doctor outfit is, I guess, standard enough that it could get away with it. The 4th Doctor's scarf is very the 4th Doctor's scarf. It's not anything else. But yeah, it sounds to me like we've accepted the fact that we can bring artifacts back.
It's the 4th Doctor's scarf? Or is there any other reason? And it's
Every-
kind of like what the lore team was saying is that like you know what this is,
Right.
But your Capsuleer, this is just a scarf.
Right. And I guess, like I said, my concern, which maybe not even like is only a half concern, is the idea of, we're going to have to deal with people having these as at their disposal for the construction of, portraits and other stuff from here on out.
I would argue that have we seen a portrait yet that's like Doctor Who oriented, that's going to be more glaring or immersion breaking than, say, what, half the names in New Eden? Like,
That's a fair
Paul
point.
Vicker,
People's
49.
names and
Like,
current
All right.
portraits
All
are
right.
way
All
more
right. All right.
egregious.
All right. I concede.
you have no power here, Lord Princess.
Awesome.
Scarfgate.
Scarfgate.
So, a lot of the people are concerned. We're concerned about Doctor Who coming to New Eden and what that could impact things. Speaking of the lore, however, it seemed very important to CCP, both in its design and in its communication to us. The one thing that CCP Fozzie was very upfront with and seemed it was very important for him to get across is the idea that the stuff doesn't come here. Anything that comes here is because we bring artifacts back. Do you feel like that makes a difference? Or is this, again, a thing that doesn't matter and we should move on?
No, it makes a big difference. I mean, you are going somewhere else. That makes it very clear that with the entire setup, like you need this specific piece of technology in combination with the unknown naturally or unnatural occurring event, and otherwise it doesn't work. Like that's just a clear distinction of this is normal, something unusual happened in another place, and you've successfully made it back with thingamabobs from that other place.
Are you happy or sad that we don't get to actually interact with the Doctor himself?
I'm happy.
Happy.
From a player perspective, sad. From a it's not worth the outrage of like, they've busted our wall down. Like, I don't care that much.
Well, I mean, like you could have the same thing, but like when you filament in, the Doctor communicates with you. Like you see the TARDIS spinning around. It's like, oh, this is going on. Help me by killing these guys. Like not like just like have him be an actor that you interact with through the course.
No, I think that with how they've seemed to approach it now, still leaves a lot of room for suspension of disbelief.
Right. Yeah.
Like, conscientiously, like they intentionally, right? Like,
Correct.
It's obvious.
Right. That was the intent. That's what I'm saying. Like, is anybody disappointed by the fact that we don't get to meet the Doctor?
Anyone who likes Doctor Who. all the Whovians will be disappointed.
That's actually a good question. Is anybody here like an actual Whovian?
Not terrible.
No, I know Dan is in chat. Me, yeah. I wouldn't really say so. Like I've seen a couple seasons. I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Passively watched.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, everybody has this qualification on what it takes to be allowed to call yourself this way or that. So I'm
Just
aware.
replace it.
Like
I've
seen enough of the show. I enjoyed what I've seen from it. But yeah, it's a fun series. That's it.
Just replace it with another fandom. Like we all have our different fandoms. Take one that you personally like, swap it out for the Whovian thing. Would you be disappointed without that interaction?
Just for clarity, since somebody asked in chat, the term Whovian is the term given to fans of Doctor Who. Like that fandom are known as Whovians. But so I think that there are some people that are disappointed. There's somebody who was saying, what's the point if we don't get to meet the Doctor itself? The whole point is that we're fighting Daleks, but I think that the reason why they did that to the point that was made by N Rush.
Excuse me, we're fighting biomechanical saucers?
Exactly. Like our systems don't recognize them for what they are. And as I pointed out, it is very easy to assume that this is just another strange sleeper thing and write it off.
Yeah, you could give it any explanation you like, but the fun part is because if you're familiar with Doctor Who, you're going to see things, you might see Easter eggs and go, "Ooh, I know that," and that's fun, that's rewarding. And for other people who don't know the show, they might get interested, or they just don't really care and still have an enjoyable experience, regardless of knowing what things are or not. It's the Easter eggs and the references that you pick up on that just make it more enjoyable. It's
Right.
icing on the cake.
So first of all, I went to go check the announcement video on both the Eve YouTube channel and on the Doctor Who YouTube channel, and let me tell you, there is a difference in the comments.
I thought so.
But the
I like the Whovians more.
yeah, I love that how like it's more like I see people more warning them about us than anything else. But what I found interesting was, you know, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, this is really cool. The nebula looks cool and all that stuff. These guys were identifying the different structures, and they're like, oh, this is from there, and this is from there, and all that stuff. And it's like
whatever.
Every little thing is a
Like,
reference.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah. So, I think that for those who are interested in Doctor Who, there's going to be a lot for you. For those who don't care about Doctor Who, you may not even realize what is and isn't a reference.
Yeah, if
That's
you didn't
great.
see the 3 references in the last Pulse video, you're not actually a Doctor Who fan. And you
Oof.
can just not worry about it.
Well, all right
I
then.
mean, the thing that I'm very curious about is if CCP, no, not CCP, if the BBC is going to pick up on something, and how are they going to make a reference to this event if they're going to do it? Like, if they're going to do it, I'm going to be very curious. And when it happens, it's going to be the other way around. Like, Eve players are going to be looking at it, and it's like, oh, that's that, or oh, that's that, or oh, that's that. And other people
like
that don't know Eve are going to be looking at, like, what are you talking about? And they just don't have that little extra that, in this case, it's the other way around. But that's fine.
You mean if like a Doctor Who episode references this and explains it from their perspective? Yeah, and that would be cool, but there wasn't
a ship and they're like, is that a Raven? No, it's a spaceship.
My Raven was fit with the following. To be clear, there was apparently no indication that was in the works per se, but you know, hope springs eternal, I guess.
Yeah, but that's why I said, like, I'm not sure if they're going to do it, but if they're going to do it.
Yeah. Another one of the misconceptions, or not misconceptions, I guess, because I can't necessarily prove it, but like I see a lot of people blaming Pearl Abyss for this, and it's like Oxum Razor suggests that the CCP London office is probably the reason, the bigger reason why, you know, they ended up with.
I thought Pearl Abyss was going to have a much bigger hand in it, but it seems like not really.
Right.
Everybody will always have theories, and some become really outlandish. And if people are fearful for something, for example, with Pearl Abyss, that there would be a lot more monetization, having crossovers like this, they can really spark a fire tornado under those kind of fears. And you could really see it, especially on the Eve Reddit, like the outrage and the fear and the accusations. But when you listen to the interview, you could hear like, no, we were approached by the BBC.
Right.
And
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, it's something where so that's how it is. And then all of a sudden, the entire fear that CCP is going out there isn't true, because this is a clear case where CCP was approached by another IP and no money exchanged, which I think is also a good thing, because as soon as money gets involved, all of a sudden the paying party gets to make demands on how things are done or what should and should not take place. And with this kind of partnership, you could say, hey, this is what we want to do. They explained that it was a low burner, a long-term thing that they worked towards, and they just went back and forth, like, are you okay with this? Are you okay with that? And that is a lot more of a healthy partnership on doing a crossover.
Right. And furthermore, if something's pushed, especially by somebody high up, it's not going to be a slow burn that takes over a year to even make it to the desk of the guys making the event sites, right? So it really does feel like, as I mentioned during the stream, marketing teams and these kinds of, like, there's always just all kinds of things percolating. Like, you never know what's going to actually advance to the next stage. It just happens to be that the correct series of events happened, and Doctor Who, let's be honest, like, the IP meshes with Eve better than most, I would say, just because of the nature of Doctor Who. That allows it to move forward. It didn't come off to me like the lore team was told by an upper echelon, you must make this work. You know, it feels like it survived the process and therefore became a final product.
And how many posts did we see about, like, this is all Pearl Abyss's fault, they're twisting the screws and forcing CCP out the door to go make these connections, and they better do it or make some money off of it or else, and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as it got clarified, where'd all those people go? All of a sudden it was like, well,
They'll
Lord.
find something else. They'll find another topic or reason. Interestingly enough, though, the majority of the posts on Reddit that I read was coming from people that self-admittedly stopped playing the game. So on one hand, why are you upset? At the other hand, I'm like, if people get this upset while not playing the game, it's clear that there are still a lot of people who really care about the game. So Eve dying? I don't think so. Not if you still get these kind of responses.
So I also want to respond because there's kind of this overall feeling from chat now and yesterday too, like, why does the lore matter? In this case, the reason why is because the mechanics, we already discussed the mechanics of the sites, at least some, and it looks like they're going to be pretty good. So the entire outrage is lore, right? Like, the entire outrage is the setting and the context, not the mechanics. So yeah, that's what we're debating, or that's what a lot of this discussion is. Sorry.
Well, there's a lot of misconception about which way it was going too, right? Like, there's the assumption, like, hey, it's a crossover, it's a collaboration. The Doctor must be coming into New Eden, and that's, effing crazy. And
right.
You run with it, and then it got reined into, okay, so you Capsuleers are leaving New Eden, going to Doctor Who space, whatever you want to call the setting, I have no idea, and visiting, and then coming back. Like, there's no, for lack of a better term, penetration of the sacred Eve bubble of lore.
Right. People, I saw such fears as, like, they're going to give people Dalek ships to fly, or something like that. It's like
least box capsules,
Dalek fireworks.
Yeah, we got fireworks.
I think it was going to be like a Dalek or a police box firework, but then they said that they reined it into just more pretty stuff.
The thing is, though, as long as things work really well and consistently in lore, that means that the mechanics in the game and everything else is also very likely to be very consistent and proper working with all the other aspects in the game. It's as soon as lore starts to get wonky, or there's a lot of retconning or changing or duplicity, that's when things start to get a bit more and more shaky. And considering how extremely consistent CCP has approached the lore and everything that has happened in the game, I think it could also be the fear of people hearing something, picturing a certain scenario of what's going to happen before it was even confirmed how it's going to take any shape or form, and that made them clinch and give like a knee-jerk response for their fear on what they enjoyed about it, and then all of a sudden it could potentially start going downhill or completely out the window.
Right. All right. I feel like we've avoided the scary part of the conversation for as long as we can. So I'm going to transition to another piece of this conversation, which is that the big thing that I've seen as far as fears from both sides echoed is the specter of NFTs. Okay. In the one corner, we have EVE Online and CCP, who have Hilmar in an interview in Korean reporting talked about the use of NFTs in the future, and there was the NFTs that were made of the kill mails during the Alliance tournament. In the other corner, we have Doctor Who that has released a new card game that uses blockchain NFT technology to provide ownership of cards. Both sides are now saying that it is dangerous for them to be playing with the, doing a partnership with the other side, because the other side does stuff with NFTs. All that said, CCP Fozzie repeatedly, it was Swift, stressed that there would be no NFTs involved at all with this event. There will this has nothing to do with that card game, etc., etc. I guess that's just opening up the topic, but anybody want to jump on that?
So yes, this event in no way I feel will have anything to do with NFTs. However, Eve and CCP in a grander context, I do feel we'll start introducing more and more NFT integration, we'll call it.
Right.
So my interpretation of that interview was that Hilmar was interested in the concept of NFT and what was it called, play to earn concepts.
Right.
I think he was more interested in play to learn or play to earn than NFT specifically. I remember the article correctly. He even said EVE Online is not in a position to implement, not necessarily ever, just if it does happen, it's on a distant horizon.
Doesn't understand.
And
I don't want to explain to Grandpa what an NFT is. Let's not do that.
And this isn't surprising. I mean, Hilmar talked about the possibilities of blockchain in 2019 or before that. So, NFTs are just is a modern buzzword based on a current application of cryptocurrencies. But, blockchain is a much more complicated kind of issue. I talked about this the other day too. But actually the Doctor Who card game is a really good example of NFTs being used in a way that I was kind of hinting or talking about in that video, in the fact that the reason why they are using, when they say that they're using NFTs and blockchain for that card game, what they're doing is they're tying the card's ownership to that ledger, which means that you actually own the card. It's not it's not belongs to the game company, but you have the thing that says that what the card is and it's yours. What that means for it, I don't know. Possibly they're doing it so that way you can buy and sell cards, because they still open in packs and stuff. I'm too loud. Let me turn myself down and me up and them up. So when we talk about NFTs coming to EVE Online, I think that it's more about conferring ownership that you can then, sell because it's a thing that's valuable in the game, rather than trying to generate tokens that you should try to convince people to buy from you because it's special in some way. The current NFT system is a scam, but I don't think that the kill mail system that we saw or is an example of where they're going, but rather just them experimenting with the thing.
It's a first. Yeah, it's an experimentation. It's a playground. You got to start somewhere.
That goes back to the play to earn.
It's Eve was not CCP's first game, right? And no one cares what the first game was, but this is the product we
Danger
have now.
game.
Similar to no one's going to care about those old NFTs. They're not going to be relevant at all, but they're learning and building, and something in the future will be able to use this technology.
Right.
With how it stands right now, I am fundamentally against NFTs because they are far too susceptible to abuse, either through scamming schemes or getting people hooked that are in vulnerable positions, like people that are prone to gambling addiction or substance abuse. Because of those things and how susceptible NFTs are, I'm fundamentally against them. At the same time, I'm going to refer to historical things. And I'm from the Netherlands. Tulips. Tulips became the rage. Like it was fantastic. People paid with tulips
Right.
until it crashed. And I just see a strong similarity with NFTs being a similar thing.
Right.
What about
but
Hypernet? Like, would you put that in the same umbrella? Like, Hypernet's potentially dangerous people to those with those challenges?
Yes, at the same time, CCP has made it clear that if people... you can ask to just be locked out of interacting with the Hypernet. Like, they've made it clear, like, if you don't want it, or if you know your weakness, just let us know, and we'll block your access to it. So they are taking responsibility in that way, that they actually say, like, hey, we're aware of the dangers, and this option is out there. All you have to do is ask.
Right. So, I mean, the current, what most people mean when they say NFTs in the modern day, i.e., like tied to a specific, object or thing, and it's effectively a certificate of authenticity that doesn't mean anything to anyone outside of the that particular blockchain. Like that is, as I said, scammy and a gamble, because you're gambling that it'll be somebody else will buy it for more. It's effectively a kind, almost very similar in nature to like a Ponzi scheme in that sense, right? Like you're investing because you think that you can get out of it, knowing that the whole thing is still built on air. But if you tie it to things that are valuable intrinsically within a game, for instance, a card within a card game, or a specific module within EVE Online, how is that gambling, and how is that bad?
Because it's a speculative market, right? That's the gamble. Like,
What do you mean? Why? No, you mean the buying and selling of the thing?
But they're essentially pixels. That's it.
Right.
You're putting a
So is Plex.
imaginary or fictive value on pixels.
So are skins.
but you're not trading them on a speculative market.
Sure you do.
I mean, so like if you want to get into it, it's like about currency trading, right? And it's, should you hold physical gold or should you trust money in digital bank numbers?
Right.
Right,
Like,
but they're not.
people
But
are
my point is
assigning
that
value to this, and it's, do other people agree?
right. But my point is that the NFT system as it is right now, because it's basically vapid, the only reason why you're getting it is the hope that it goes up in price later. Here, you're getting it because it's a card. You want that card for your deck. It's a module. You want that module for your ship. The fact that you could then sell it later is independent.
This goes back to your video thing that you were covering with the whole like,
Right.
the sword
Well, this-
games attribute. Okay, got it.
Exactly. And this is actually when the Doctor Who card game talks about NFTs, that is actually what they're talking about, is that the cards, the ownership of the cards is held in blockchain. Therefore, it's just like any other card game online, but rather than the company having all of the cards and just like saying that you're allowed to use them, you actually have ownership on the blockchain of those. So that's it. That's the whole point. That's why they have NFTs. What is wrong with that? Help me understand.
Like inherently for myself, I wouldn't have this is wrong because of this position. What I imagine people will make the claim for is that so people will enter into this with the understanding that they're air. They have no value whatsoever, typically, because we're still talking about NFTs.
Right.
But when you tie it to an in-game item, now the intrinsic value of the in-game item is what's driving the market. The NFT part is just a layered added value, which goes back to the article with Hilmar. And I mean, it's an edited video or edited article or interview, so who knows what else was said or in what context. But my interpretation of it was Hilmar was mostly just interested in it from a play-to-earn perspective. And when you put up two products next to each other, the reality of it's irrelevant. The perception is, if you play my product, you can quote-unquote make real-life money playing it. If you play, let's throw Star Citizen up as the counterpoint to it, you're going to have fun in a game that looks good. Like, there's no downside to it. Like, it's good and better kind of a perspective. Which one's going to have more hype? You know, I'm not going to tell you about login numbers or money spent on the game or whatever metrics we want to look at, but at a surface glance, which one sounds more attractive between those two, or even throw Elite Dangerous in there? The one that's going to give you a quote-unquote paycheck, again, doesn't matter if it's true or not, it's just the perception that all of a sudden your time has real world value.
Right. And I've always interpreted this like the example I use in my video is, abyssal modules, right? Like the whole point of non-fungible tokens is the idea that like any given token, any given entry within Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these, they're all effectively identical to one another. So if I give you if I give you my 10 Ethereum and then somebody else gives me 10 Ethereum, it's identical. I mean, exactly the same situation. Whereas given the fact that each piece of Ethereum is tied to some other picture or something, that makes that a token of Ethereum different from all of the other token of Ethereum, right? That's actually the value of the point of NFTs. That's what the NFT actually means. So in that regard, like abyssal modules already are a non-fungible item that we trade back and forth. If this was moved to a blockchain, then they would be, the ownership of the individual modules would be now external to the game itself.
The question I have for you is, why do you want to own this thing as opposed to paying for a service?
So this goes back to the why, pay to earn thing and the contribution thing that Square Enix said, because the idea is that
if someone gives me an abyssal module in the game, I don't want to have to do my taxes for that item. Because at a certain point you will have to, because they do have value.
That's true. There are ways to do it though, as long as it's like a marketplace that does the trading that has like a secondary currency. So you go from money to that thing. You're right. There are some complications for sure.
Why do I want to own this thing? Like,
well,
as
the
opposed
idea
to just like having this subscription or whatever.
Well, you want to own it because, well, I mean, why do you want abyssal modules? The whole point here is that like
to use them in a game for entertainment.
Well, yeah, but you would still do that. It would just now be yours instead of CCP's.
Can I interject?
What does that get me? Why do I want that?
Because if you ever do want to do something with it, you can. And also, like, the whole point is that as you play the game, this is where the pay to earn thing comes from. As you play the game, you basically generate these things over time. And therefore, and you can sell those things that you generate for revenue. That would be where the play to earn model comes from in this, I would suggest.
Can I interject for a moment and just drop this question? Because based on the questions you were putting out, Astaroth, it seemed almost, and it could really be interpreted as if you're defending NFTs and that they would be a good thing. Like, is this more like playing devil's advocate and trying to push a response, or?
No, I'm correcting misconceptions, right? Like, if people say no, using NFT for instance, the tax issue, that's a really great point. But the gambling issue, I feel, was again the nature of the current implementation of blockchain, rather, because blockchain is just a technology, right? Like, that's like saying that all databases are evil because some databases are used to do gambling sites, right? Like, it's just a way of storing, maintaining data and security. So
it's blaming technology instead of utilization.
Right. So I'm trying to split away those other pieces of what NFT is and like strip it down to what NFTs mean for gaming and, present that to you guys to see what you feel about that. That's all. I'm not advocating for, I am giving the most, I guess, positive version of it, or at least the justification of it, but more for clarity. I'm still very, this is a big thing in gaming right now, like huge. And well, it's a big thing throughout the whole world. So I don't have a firm opinion on it right now, but I know that it's not as simple as a lot of people's reactions to it. So I'm trying to develop the conversation a little bit.
Well, a lot of people think if we get mad about it, it'll just go away. But the real answer is, if it makes a lot of money, it's here to stay.
Yeah,
right.
I would say it's in its kind of its infantile state, but it's going to grow and continue, and it's just going to be a part of technology.
Fair enough.
Like, sometimes you want to use a database. Sometimes you want to use, I don't know, something that's not a database. Sometimes you want to use like an NFT system. It's just going to be another tool in the toolkit.
Right.
I'm going to say that earning money through playing a game absolutely terrifies me. outside of the concept if you're part of tournament games where you have to be in a team or a league, like, because then all of a sudden you're playing something but it's in a tournament mode, and if it's really popular and they put monetary prizes for the top performing teams, I'm somewhat okay with that. But as soon as you start putting in that if you play this game and you do these things, you start earning real life money, oh boy, please don't go there, because then the casual aspects of gaming goes right out the window. And can you imagine the absolute horror if, for example, with Eve, you've been working towards something, you're trying to move something to the market, it gets blown up, and it basically means you lose a big chunk out of your paycheck. Like, that's no, please no. That terrifies me if that's going to happen with gaming.
Yeah. Or like, so I don't know if you rate a lot, Ash, in 14, but like if your gear score, it's got to be like 380, or now it's like it's got to be 385 because we got to hit this NFT mark to get our paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I guess at that point it would be a question of how these things are generated, right? Like if you have to buy booster packs of it, then that becomes the biggest issue. But shoot, I was gonna segue that, and now I totally forgot what it was. Hold on.
Like at a certain point, I just want to spend money for fun.
Oh, I was going to ask Dutch about the line for like making money playing video games. Is that you don't want people monetizing their actual gameplay? Because like the overwhelming majority of us here making money.
Monetize it the right way by streaming.
Okay, let me put it differently, right? If you make money while gaming because you stream, you make videos or anything else, like, I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
None
There's
whatsoever.
a distinction. Okay.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. It's the part where you could make a living by playing the game instead of playing the game and promoting it, letting other people see it, or in another way with videos or guides. Like, that's the part where I go, yikes, do we really want to go there?
There's a
It's like
difference
Blizzard
between
going for the Diablo 3
also
optional
like-
thing, right?
I
Like,
was actually just
value
about to
are
bring
you
that up.
creating by playing the game and getting these NFTs or whatever.
That was
Like, we're making value for consumers, if you want to call them.
right, exactly. So that what Rush just pointed out was the thing I was trying to remember earlier. So there's two examples of this that I can think of off the top of my head. I know that there's other games that have done like real money tie-ins to stuff, but the two that stand out to me, and unfortunately I don't know the details of the second one, but like there's the Diablo 3 auction house, which like that was a big piece of Diablo 3 as it was being announced, was the idea that like you could farm stuff in Diablo 3 and then sell it on the real life auction house to real people. And so in theory, if you got good enough at that, you could make money off of like a real amount of money off of that. That was like the entire sell. And then when they came out with the expansion, they completely removed the auction house. Now, part of that was because a lot of that was because they originally thought that the game design, like the thing that was fun about Diablo was the trading of things. And then they came to the conclusion that what was fun about Diablo was the discovery of things, which means that like that's more why the auction house rather than it totally failing. But the other example is, and again, I don't know all the details. Maybe somebody knows more. But I distinctly remember a giant problem with Counter-Strike and some knife for real life money and gambling and all that kind of stuff. Because you're absolutely right. As soon as real life money starts getting tied to this stuff, then every single aspect of it, up and down, now becomes far more like questioned, you know? That's absolutely true. In other words, I haven't seen it done successfully in a big way yet, even though a lot of people have tried.
the closest to Eve and space stuff would be like Entropy Online or whatever it's called. Entropia? I can't think of the name of it right now. That's why in chat
Yeah,
put
I think
it.
it's
Entropia sounds right. Either way. So what about that one?
Oh, just that, like, you're looking for examples earlier. You're trying to think of like Diablo and what was the other one you gave?
Counter-Strike, but I'm not
Counter-Strike,
100% familiar with that one. So.
Counter-Strike kind of got dunked, right? That's the whole thing.
Right. Well, there was a
Steam
whole.
had to go through.
I brought it up because if I remember correctly, there's a whole legal issue around
I
that
think
specific
it was
knife
just the
and it's
gambling,
selling.
not anything
Yeah.
in game, but it was people out of game.
Right, but
gambling stuff.
my point is that them having loot boxes that have rare items was fine until those rare items could then be sold for money, which means abyssal modules and rare abyssal modules right now are fine, but would they still be fine if they could be traded for real life money? That's what I mean by like having real life money involved at any point makes the whole chain up and down far more critical of an evaluation, you know?
Oh yeah, that's why you see some people drop it. Is like, my understanding is that Blizzard dropped it. Well, I'm sorry, CS:GO dropped it from it's too expensive to oversee it, so we'll ditch it. Blizzard, my understanding is that they exceeded their transaction count with PayPal, and PayPal was like, "Yo, you're putting a big strain on our desk. You're going to stop that." And Blizzard's like, "Oh, we didn't know that was the thing. We didn't research that well enough." And then, I'm not saying it's 100% the only reason that it occurred. Just as one of the narratives that I heard passed around was that Blizzard did not anticipate the sheer volume of transactions. Like, it wasn't like they had like 100 transaction overage of over 100K budget. It was like, a factor of 10 over. Like, oh, we had no idea that people would click buttons for a 3-cent PayPal transaction. We didn't know that was a thing. And then it was, and either Blizzard was backward on paying the fees, or PayPal said, "Hey, you're stressing our system out, and you need to stop." One of those two is how it was explained to me at one point.
So this is actually an interesting question, because it's being brought up in chat that if you could sell abyssal, people seem to feel that turning it into an actual non-fungible token that you actually own, so that way people could sell it, would actually change the accessibility of that item, right? That right now, the only thing you can do with them is sell them for ISK, and therefore you do. If you could sell them for real life money, then people would not be providing them for ISK anymore. So people that don't want to spend real life money won't have access to them as easily.
That's a market condition question. Yeah, that's a market condition scenario. Like, if someone offers you 8 billion ISK versus $20, and you're calculating, all right, well, if I buy and sell yada yada on my own, like,
yeah, I can take the 8 billion and then buy however many months of subscription.
Right. Well,
that's more than 20.
Yes, but when you get ISK and then subscription, that only has so much conversion to value, right? Because
it's assuming you wouldn't convert back. Yeah, it's assuming that you
right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually get cash out of it, then there's it's infinitely scaling. So
sure.
So no, I think that's actually a fair point, and that's probably one of the biggest concerns is that no matter what, if you allow people to buy and sell the thing for money, then that will dramatically change the accessibility of that thing within the game, which either means A, everything is done this way, B, which is what it sounds like the Doctor Who one is kind of done like, because they're trading cards, so trading cards have value and you can buy and sell them and trade them. Nobody trades their Magic the Gathering card for some mythical points that the game store gives to everybody to keep track of who's winning. Like you buy and sell Magic cards with cash, and that's just an accepted thing. So, or you
actually have a little bit of a thought there, because when Artifact for Steam, the Dota 2 card game came out, I played that and I got packs for it from like playing and winning.
Right.
And then I would sell those on Steam to either buy other different Steam games or whatever, or just like continue to like look for better Artifact cards to sell then, because they were a hot commodity and I made a pretty penny doing that.
But again, the point is that if you had the option to trade them in for Steam points that isn't worth real money, but it's like it goes on your profile how many Steam points you have, would you sell it for Steam points or would you sell it for money?
Nope.
Exactly.
Sell it for money.
So if you have the ability to sell,
because that's what I value. Right?
That's conditional. Yeah, it's very, very conditional.
Right. And so the problem is that it's a way of making it pay to win without making it pay to win, right? Because sure, you could buy and sell these things, but nobody is. And therefore, if you're not willing to hawk up the cash, then you can't get it. Even though technically speaking, it could, you could get it in another way. That is actually really spooky.
I guess it'd be no different than a hoarder, though. Like, if someone says, I get this NFT and I'm not going to sell it ever, period, the end. Like,
right. No, but I mean, like, so if...
And it's also like, it's just when you're in the money game, then you're in, right? So, like, you could farm up a bunch of ISK, Plex, whatever, make your own Abyssal modules, and then start selling those for just a different currency. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is, whether it's ISK, Plex, or USD. Like, some things just only get bought and sold in this certain currency.
Right. But the issue is that it changes the availability of those items in progress from an in-universe perspective, right? So if...
Oh, it obliterates in-universe stuff.
Exactly.
If you like this, then you cannot complain about any Doctor Who crossover or anything like that.
The tax man's breaking the fourth wall.
You know, that's actually a good point too, because like no matter how you shake it, it's hard to explain why. Like
Why
we
did
have
this
Plex
character sell this to this other character. Well, he used an imaginary currency that we don't talk about.
Yeah, although how do you pay for Plex in Eve? I mean, either way, that actually does. My brain's going to spin on that one, but yeah, my point is that it has impact on the universe regardless of how you do it. Because either the items are no better than other things, in which case, why? Or they are better than other things, in which case there are better things that are mostly accessible or only accessible through paying money. Ew.
Pay to win.
That sucks. That does suck. Absolutely.
Yeah. It also gets sticky just because like different cost of livings and whatnot.
Right. Right, but I'm just saying, like,
here is not a dollar there.
We keep focusing on the real life money part of things. And what I found interesting about this argument is that looking at it from an in-game, like it destroys part of the game design. You have to compromise your game design in order to allow for it, no matter how you do it, because the opportunity to do that will alter the way that players play the game, players interact with the game, and players treat each other. Does that make so? Regardless of all of the taxes and all that other stuff, it also would... There's a lot of things in Eve that Eve is resistant to a lot of things that would be very destructive in other games, right? Because of the ephemeral nature of Eve. The fact that you can buy Plex to turn it into ISK, to turn it into some powerful ship. In any other game, or most other games, that would be blatant pay to win. In Eve, it's not so much because that's not permanent progress, right? That ship is going to blow up and then you're out that money. Everything's ephemeral. So, and based on the balance and all that kind of stuff. So the idea is that there's this natural like tearing down that makes that design work better, right? There's a lot of things that the permanent killing nature of Eve helps with that a lot of other game power creep. For example, over the course of expansions, the reason why CCP can get away with the Armageddon still being relevant, even though it's like almost 20 years old now, is that everything dies. Therefore, they don't have to replace the old stuff with new stuff. They just have to add more stuff. Totally forgot where I was going with this. But yeah, this is one of those that doesn't work that way. This would Eve would not be resistant to this because it would change it would introduce a pay to win in the game that I don't think Eve would be resistant to.
Yeah, and specifically, a database does what we want it to do. I personally, in this case, don't think that you would need to own any of these items.
Right. That being said, again, going back to the very beginning, I think it's hilarious that both communities are looking at the other like, those guys are into NFTs. It's like the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. The entire, like, online community is like it's raging through all kinds of different fandoms and games and everything like that.
Well, they're pointing at companies, right? Like, it's not the fan bases pointing at each other; it's the fan bases pointing at the other side's.
Right. It's not that one fan base pointing at the other fan base. You're right. You're right.
Right.
But
It's
yeah.
also, I think, just like loud people.
Right.
Absolutely. I thought it was funny that from both persons' perspective, each side is focusing on the other side's interfacing with NFT. Rather than, in my opinion, I actually don't think that has anything to do with anything. I think that a lot of companies are experimenting with NFTs right now. So the fact that both companies have experimented with NFTs and talked positively about it isn't a conspiracy. It's barely a coincidence.
I also think it's important to remember that like companies didn't create the idea of NFTs and start using them. It was people, and these companies are reacting to that.
Right. And also the idea of blockchain and use of blockchain in video games is way older than the modern concept of NFTs. By way older,
I
I
like
mean
that point being
2018.
made. Like, Inf was talking about just the whole who gives NFTs value.
Right.
Right. People. Like, the customer next to you in line did. Difference is you're not buying, and they are.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks to you for indulging me on that conversation. I'm actually really glad that I moved more towards the NFT bad situation, because here's the thing. My concern is that the vast community, the online community's lack of understanding of NFTs and therefore reactionary behavior is actually preventing the companies from addressing or identifying the real issues, right? When players...
They don't want to touch or look at it because they're already hearing the screeching. Like,
well, no. My point is that
Oh.
when your complaint is that the NFTs take up a lot of power, or if your complaint is that NFTs are gambling, when you in your description of your complaint, it becomes very clear that you are referring to, pictures being tied to a Ethereum token and then it's sold for fake value. Then
There's also just like problems can be solved, specifically the power problem.
right, exactly. So when the developer hears that, what they hear is, oh, their concerns are already taken care of. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. Those are not valid concerns. We've already fixed that problem. We're good to go. So setting aside those, what real issues do we come to? And I think that we've actually hit a couple of them, right? Like, even if you look at the absolute most, positive light, or, their side of the explanation of NFTs and what they're going to use it for, we still come up with several significant issues that I don't know if anybody's going to be able to address. So I think that it works for something like a card game, but I don't know how it would interface with EVE Online in a way that makes sense. You know what it would? Skins. That'd basically be it. Nothing that can actually impact the game.
Well, the other part too is like you don't have to worry about figuring it out because the ones who are going to make money are the ones who are going to figure it out for us.
Well, I mean, like, the point is that if we give the wrong kind of complaint, then the company won't fix their design. Does that make sense? Right? Like, that won't be addressed. If nobody ever says, well, I understand your definition of NFT, but how is it going to affect this? Well, if CCP doesn't think about that while they're developing it, now it's in the game before anybody is able to, react to its impact.
The real question is, why should CCP spend dev time on NFTs when they could be working on faction warfare?
That's right. There you go.
That's a
Get
solid
those bean
argument.
counters into the.
And it is worth noting that, even at its best level, the idea of implementing NFTs into something like EVE, I feel like at best it is a lot of backbending in order to just justify doing this thing. I can't see where it actually brings real value to the game, no matter how you slice it.
Oh, let's keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on it until it becomes more accessible. Like, the game of chicken being played is we want to be first, but we don't want to get dunked first, right?
Right.
Like, you want to be just safe enough to make it a good bet, but not so safe that you miss the boat.
Right. But so I was saying, like, but this allows you to really own it. And the reaction I get is, so that's not the part that's important to me. It's the fact that I can use it that is important to me. Therefore, I don't need that bullshit to make my thing work, and it only could damage it. And that is an incredibly strong argument.
I would love if faction warfare, if you captured a Plex, you got an NFT of part of the ownership of that system.
And
that way I can say I own 17% of Fleet.
I would go the other direction. I would say introduce a new cryptocurrency, but rather than the proof of work being the mechanism by which new tokens are generated, have it be something like the completion of Plex. So you have to go out and Plex, and that helps you, mine. That's how you mine for ISKcoin. That is Jupiter's rock. I swear to God, I said that word right before I looked up and saw it. But that's okay. I just want to point out that is an absolute absurd thing, but who knows?
Yeah, because it doesn't bring anything new that ISK doesn't.
Well,
unless you can buy.
No, it would be the idea. It would be like this would be a new currency like Bitcoin. But what's unique about it is that rather than having giant server farms crunch through it, you have to run plexes in this video game EVE Online to have the possibility of generating new coins. Terrible idea. All right, moving on.
Whenever you bring your spaceship into a Plex, your system just starts heating up.
Yeah.
You're like, running calculations.
Speaking of which, I did see that, what is it? Norton 360 now installs a crypto miner like in the background. It's terrible. All right. That's enough of that digression. Is there anything else that we would like to talk about when it comes to this event?
I'm super pumped for it.
Oh, I want your over-unders. Okay, so chat was telling me the other day that like 30, 31K-ish ballpark is the peak login number on the launcher during peak hours. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But I want people's predictions. I don't think Nth has one or was going to share it yet. But I want ballparks. I want spitball. I want range. Like, do you think this is going to bump at 2K? Do you think it's going to bump at 5K? Is it going to be a 10K bump? Is it going to be a net loss? Like, wherever you are in the range, just what's your thought process there? You don't have to be right. You don't have to be accurate. You don't have to be specific. Like, just what are your thoughts in general on the impact of the Doctor Who collab? Like, how will it impact the peak login numbers?
I'm going to say a 10% bump. I don't know what those numbers are, but I think it's going to help.
Yeah, that's a better way of doing it, just a percentile bump. And I'm curious what CCP would metric as a success. Like, this seems to have been like a low priority background task for them for the past year. They're kind of just tossing it out there on a calendar opportune moment. And if we get something great, and if not, oh well, they don't seem overly concerned about it. So meanwhile, I'm over here going, this is the single best thing they've ever done in terms of visibility and exposure. So,
oh, it's huge. I don't think people are really accounting for that.
Right, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to bring up and forgot, which is that, like, I don't know which one it's going to go, but this has the very real, like, we could just be like, ha ha ha, this is dumb, and be raging about this stuff. And then what are we going to do when like 30,000 new, like literally the concurrent player base doubles full of these people coming and checking out because that fan base is
that would be the opposite extreme, right? Like,
can you imagine if Whovians come in and they're like, we're taking over Nullsec, be gone with goons, this is our space now.
We're gonna hug you to death. You think you've seen time dilation before? We're experts in it.
I am expecting that we'll see a noticeable increase in new accounts being created compared to what is quote unquote normally happening. I'm not sure how well it's going to translate into actually increase on the average amount of players being online, because people might just give up at the earlier stages before they ever got into the game, because it's like, this is not what I'm looking for, or they might get started and realize that they need to do some additional steps before they can get into the event space, and that might not be what they're looking for. The biggest thing to me is like, hey, if you don't care about this, if you don't like it, just don't interact with the event, but don't crap on the people that are interested in wanting to give it a go. Because if you put those people down, you're cutting off potential new players, which will affect the game in the longer run. And if there are things happening that you do like, just give that feedback. For example, what you now have with the yeet filaments, that was because the feedback was so positive that it became a permanent thing in the game. Like, they're trying new things, new mechanics, new content, and if you like that, just give that feedback. And instead of shitting or dumping on the people that are interested, if you're not, just look at what you do like and give that feedback. Because if you just dumpster on the people that do like it when you're not, it's not good for the game, and you're cutting yourself off from potential content, because less players, less content, and you're cutting yourself off from potentially amazing content that is based on what they're experimenting with here. Because you might not like certain things how they're operated here, but further down the road, they could become something that you are super stoked and hyped about.
So this website that I found gives a rough estimate of the general fan base of Doctor Who at close to 4 million. And the thing that, like, a lot of people are pointing out that Doctor Who right now has dipped in popularity, which is absolutely true. But I do note that this event doesn't tie into that Doctor Who. This is more of a nod to, you know, the iconic Doctor Who, right? So these guys that liked Doctor Who, like watched Doctor Who religiously during like the 11th Doctor, or even older ones that watched it during the original series, is maybe that are unhappy with the current stuff, so they don't watch it, but they still are fans of Doctor Who. They could key into this. So the population could be very, or at least slightly different than what we would think about when it comes to like who would be attracted to this, rather than just active fans.
Unique viewership over the past 5-10 years.
Right. And so, like, I'm not saying that it absolutely will. I'm not being optimistic about it per se. I just, it occurred to me kind of late in thinking about this, that the exact opposite of what we feel or what we keep, whinging about could very well happen, where it's like, well, what happens when we are literally overwhelmed by this much larger fan base, even giving us a fraction of their attention?
What's that Wii stuff? Urs was streaming that the other morning. Like, he tried to show his chat. He's like, this little red circle, that's the Eve community. This massive green circle is the Doctor Who community. It's like the big fish, little fish. All the people who are screeching about, like, well, I guess just we had to make money somehow. Like, if you live on a planet where you think the big fish pays the little fish to go to work, you're out of your mind.
So I have a question for you, Ash. So we both agree that this is doing some amount of damage to the lore. Maybe not a lot, but some. How many players do you want to acquire for that for 6+ months, we'll say, to make it worth it? I want a hard number.
I think I reject the premise. I think that there's a lot of people, like it's a meme that the lore is dead now. But I think that a lot of that doesn't take into consideration the actual event and how it's playing out. I honestly believe that this could be perfectly fine when it comes to the impact of the lore. And I think that I'd be very interesting to see a surge of new players that come from Doctor Who, because I think that they're going to come in with a totally different set of interests, set of goals, and way of looking at the game. right? These are people that aren't joining because of BTEC-R. These are people that aren't joining because of, some, the YouTube videos about fighting or even the industry ones. They're joining because they like this, story-driven sci-fi universe. And if they hook into EVE Online, then I actually think that it could be really good for the lore community, because these people are more likely to want to actively engage. Like, once the Doctor Who stuff is done, I would expect a fair chunk of them to then start biting into once they learn, oh, well, also we have wormhole space and it's got all kinds of
How are
stuff.
you going to feel when a Whovian discovers that new landmark?
I'm going to say props to the person who found it first, because they got it right. Well done.
That would
regardless
be,
of their background.
Like I said, I think that would be amazing, because I think that, like I said, I see this as being in the beginning of. So we've had different waves of players, right? Like, there's the players that joined from BTEC-R. There's the players that joined from the Battle of Asakai. There's the players that joined, you know what I mean? And so, like, I'm interested to see what the players that join from this become. And if one of them is the one that solves that mystery, outstanding, because we are all dinosaurs and need some help and fresh blood to look at these problems.
A different mindset can already spark amazing things. I mean, I'm part of ARC, and we were very active with trying to learn things about the Triglavians during chapters 1, 2, and more mechanically in chapter 3. But we made real life news because we started to look at something where initially somebody was like, hey, could we start keeping track of which systems were invaded? And then the data was collected, another person started processing, and all of a sudden a person looked at us like, you know what? I'm just going to look at what type of systems, what type of suns. And all of a sudden, the importance of blue stars was cracked way before chapter 3. And it was nailed because different people looked at it in a different way. And that's how the ball started rolling. Because if you just look at it from one perspective, like, you could miss so much. Having fresh blood with a different mindset, different objectives, they could really enhance the game, crack things that were never cracked or completely missed so far. I'm excited for that possibility.
Yeah, to be honest, we left the Eric Jalon project very defunct. I mean, like, obviously there's reasons why it got cut off, but there are pieces of it that could have been taken forward and then didn't. And now I think a lot of that information has been lost. But, the mysteries could still be re-uncovered, if that makes sense. And so I think that the mystery of the puzzle box of Anoikis, the Triglavians, and the Drifters, the Precursor Crisis, is the kind of thing that could hook a Whovian. And if that's what they get into, what happens when we have a population that are driven to the fiction portal early on? And so they don't think that there is no lore, but they find out that there are all these stories and chronicles and books and things to learn about. They never come to the conclusion that the lore is not important. They come to the conclusion that this universe has so much to it.
And they've already proven that they'll watch 20-year-old stuff.
And
Yep. When it comes to content and lore to back it up, or containing hints for what's gonna happen next, CCP is really playing the long game.
Yeah.
To use your example from before, Ash, like, you're asking us how happy or sad we would be if we actually got to see the Doctor or not see the Doctor inside that filament. What about you, as from the lore perspective? Like, would that have been too much? Would that have been a bridge too far?
I absolutely am happy that we didn't get the Doctor.
And then my second follow-up is, now what's your price? How big of a bump in new player acquisition would be like, okay, I guess it was worth it. Like,
well, that's what I was saying. Like, it would probably be a pretty low number, because I don't think that it's that much of a cost.
Gotcha.
That being said, I do like, what is it? Chicky tender, I think. Hold on. Oh, of course, now that I look, there it is. Chicken tendy. That's what it is. Chicken tendy really brought up, put it in a way that I agree with, which is like, even if 1% of the people that come and check it out stay, then that's a win. I mean, obviously, I'd want a higher percentage than the overall. I would love it. No, I'll tell you what my goal is, or what my point of worth it is. If the retention rate of this population surge is noticeably different, better than the retention rate, the standard retention rate and the retention rate of previous events, then yes. Because not only does that mean that we get this population, but CCP makes a huge advancement in in what gets people to stick, right? I think that overall, I don't even think it's the Doctor Who thing that's going to get people to stick. It's the idea that like these new bros are coming in with a direction and with a motivation built in. And by the time that they're done with that direction and motivation, they are far more likely to be hooked than they are by the end of the actual tutorial. And so if that ends up proving to be successful, then game on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then likewise, if even 1% of them, if 1% of the Whovians that come in encounter the universe Eve portal within the first like few days, and therefore key into it before other things, the huge win, because people generally don't even know that the portal exists, let alone, see it as a primary resource from the very, very beginning of your experience when you're still forming your opinions about what this game really is.
Yeah, but it's new, so that's better.
Right.
Well, my reason for asking
New
is
lore
like
portal.
I view Ash as like the proto lore nerd, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can be as invested in the lore as Ash is, and still be able to have like a rational, objective perception of like, all right, there is a point where you bend, where you've seen the posts, or at least the claims of the posts, like, oh no, keep it pure, and there's no room to wiggle here at all, and march.
I mean, if I have to put a number on it, I'll say that like if we can get 10,000 new players, I'll be happy about the scarf. I'll be okay with the scarf, because the scarf has become my like token of like I've been able to kind of explain away in my head everything else. So I'll give you a scarf for 10,000 people.
Deal.
Anywho, that's not concurrent players. That's just retained players.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I should probably apologize in advance to all the YouTube viewers for this. It's a 2-hour video.
They're used to it.
Yeah, I'm about to say, viewers of my YouTube channel is pretty. It's a common complaint. All right.
Oh, guys, if you don't know about it, the big hack is to watch all of Ashtarathi's YouTube content at least 1.5 speed minimum.
That is true. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Strongly recommend. All right. Well, I guess one more time just to wrap things up. I want my big takeaways from the discussion, the chat that I had with CCP, is that this was brought to them by the BBC. It wasn't a financial transaction. It was more of a collaborative opportunity. They have taken as many measures as I feel like you logically could take to make it worthwhile, or non-destructive. And this has nothing to do with NFTs. That's, I think, my biggest takeaways from the interview. Did anybody else? Is there anything that people like? Is there anything else that came out of the interview that you saw stood out?
I mean, you pretty much covered them. Like the NFT concern was never valid in my opinion. Like there was never going to be a reality where that was actually going to play. That was just something that people wanted to believe was going to be an issue, so they could justify their anger.
So I actually looked in. So I found out what Swift was specifically referring to, which was on Reddit. There was at that exact moment, that morning, there was the top post was the fact that they had uncovered the secret truth that in fact there's this NFT card game that Doctor Who is part of, and that's what this is a partnership for. So this direct accusation that this isn't a partnership with Doctor Who, the show, but specifically an advertisement for the Doctor Who card game, which is NFT, was the thing that caused him. That was the exact post that he was addressing.
So not confirmation bias, but isn't that confirmation seeking for those people? Like,
Yeah.
excellent. Here's a post that completely backs up my outrageous position. It was
The real
convenient. It was very
question
convenient.
is, why is BBC and Doctor Who wanting to work with Eve?
That's a good point. And that was the other thing. Sorry. That's a good takeaway too, with the whole BBC approaching CCP. That's actually one of the interesting pieces of all of this that I think a lot of people have ignored, because it's like they got their attention attracted somehow.
Like, also, is this supposed to make me want to watch Doctor Who? Because I
Again,
guess maybe
yeah.
a little bit, but not really, and we're also way smaller base.
Yeah, I feel like it really is like, it comes. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It comes off as fan service to a different fan base, right? It's all of the iconic stuff. It's the Daleks, the scarf, the 11th Doctor uniform. They, CC Fozzie even said that they were wanting to do like the Fez, but they didn't. In the end, they didn't. Right? Like this is not trying to convince you to watch the show. It's trying to get Whovians to try out EVE Online, have a reason to try out EVE Online. And I honestly think that if anything, from like the BBC side of things, it's brand repairing, right? They are having a problem right now. Their new stuff is highly unpopular. So if they can remind everybody about the iconic things that everybody actually likes about Doctor Who, the things that the fan base is surround themselves with, then maybe everybody will forget that they're angry at the current version. That's my guess.
Fair. Just a bunch of fan service.
Yeah.
I like Fonsui's theory. I think there's just like one or a group of employees at BBC that were like, it wouldn't be cool if, and then that's why it was a long-standing grind of getting it done.
That's
It's also
absolutely
just like,
possible.
it's a little free, just whatever thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to know like even more about that kind of thing. But I think that a lot of this comes back to the fact that so far we have no information about BBC doing anything about Eve at all. That the only thing that they're doing is basically the same advertisement as, to the Eve, the same video that we got. So it feels to me like they find value in the fact of having Doctor Who things in the Eve universe, like an intrinsic value to that. Maybe it's because now that those items are in the game, like an advertisement ends and you move on. But by having these iconic items of Doctor Who in Eve, people will continuously run into them over time and therefore continuously potentially be exposed to the Whoverse. There's been a lot of players.
Like if I see a Frostline analyzer, I'm like, oh, okay, it's a module, whatever, who cares?
Right.
If I see a Doctor Who scarf, I'm like, oh, there was a Doctor Who event?
Right, exactly. Like if for some reason you comment on the bow tie and then somebody says, oh yeah, that's from Doctor Who, and you're like, oh, what's Doctor Who? I've already seen lots of comments about people on both sides, Whovians that are saying that this is going to be the thing that gets them to try out EVE Online because they want to go kill Daleks, and EVE players that said that this is what got them to learn about Doctor Who. So I I think that both companies already are considering this relatively successful, even though there has been all of this kind of riling up. It really will. All of this whinging prior to it isn't going to matter as much as how it actually rolls out and how it actually plays out throughout the event.
It actually raises a good topic. Is people talking about it is the point. Like, if this were actually an issue, and Eve was quote unquote dying, you know what we would hear? Absolutely nothing.
It's true.
Apathy is the sign of the death knell of the project. Like,
and it has captured our. EVE Online has increasingly had almost like a 24-hour news cycle. Like, and this has really captured the attention. Does anybody think that the 3 weeks is too short?
A little bit, yeah. I'd like to see it go probably mid-Feb. Well, I guess we have to think about the Guardians Gala, right?
Yeah,
Maybe February 7th, and then have a week or maybe two.
Yeah.
For a potentially one-time ever type of a deal, I think 3 weeks is still fine, though. Like, it has to fit inside the calendar, like you guys are saying. And if you go too far with it, it'll devalue it. Like, you still have to have like an urgency factor. If it goes for 6 weeks, like, I'll do it later. Crap, I didn't do it at all.
Just by the that's not that's a good point. But I guess the reason why I was thinking about that is with the idea of like a new player working their way through it. Having a thing like you have a month to get all the way through it seems to be, a comfortable amount of time of saying like, if you can't get it done within that time, you're done. But I wonder if people will feel like 3 weeks is too short of a time for them to progress all the way through it as a new player. It probably is fine. I know that events being 2 weeks always feels pretty short.
I mean, if they buy some large skill injectors, they should be fine.
If they use a buddy code.
Well, yeah, I think only buddy code is required, right? But then after that, yeah, you could get like halfway through the event. They were saying in the time,
right?
Considering the timing, I would say 3 weeks is about the right duration. Like, you'll get enough to stay enticed to keep going. And if you don't really care about it too much, like, then the 3 weeks is probably enough time to not be super frustrated. And shortly afterwards, we're going to have the Guardians Gala.
Right. Well, as Tempest Data points out, for a lot of people, 3 weeks is really only 3 to 5 sessions of game time, because you don't play that often. It's just like a thing that you do on a Friday evening or something like that. There's another one.
But also, like, we don't particularly know how much effort or time is required to complete the event, and like what even completing the event means. Like, can I go in
the track,
the top tier filament, do one of the top tier sites, and call it good, or like, what do I need to do? Do I need to fully fill out the track to get the TARDIS box trinket? I don't know.
The track, they said that the track rewards are going to be the sub battleship skins. The login reward is going to be the Red Force, the new Red Force skins. And the scarves and stuff are going to be drops. So
really, as a Whovian, right? Like, I don't really need to do this event aside from shooting a Dalek once, right? Like, that's quote unquote complete. I can buy the scarf, I can buy the trinkets. That's we'll say the minimum requirement.
To scratch the.
Is 3 weeks enough time to reasonably get into a cruiser and do the combat sites?
With the buddy code, you betcha.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's a solid. That's the other point, which is that you can skip ahead, right? You don't have to do it in order. If you just want to go do the advanced hacking sites, then you can buy the keys, right? You don't have to build them yourself. And likewise, if you want to do the combat sites, you can just if you can acquire the keys. one of the things I want to do within our organization is have it so that like there'll be people that farm the keys, and then once we have a whole chunk of them, then like, you know, a group can run a bunch of them all in a row, you know.
Yeah, it depends. Like, also, I don't know if you can get the keys or anything in the combat versions, or if that's all going to be Explo side.
I think I want to say that it was going to be the Explo side.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, because you get the doodads and blueprints in the Explo side.
Right, and then the combat is just for blowing up Daleks and getting.
Yeah, that's where you get the loot.
NPC loot, right?
Yeah, you get the red loot and the doodads.
That'd be cool.
See, people are Chicken Tendy says give them an expert system. Could work, but I think that and they absolutely could have done that. I think that they went with this intention. Well, CCP Fozzie seemed to suggest that they just simply balanced it around it being a reasonable task for players that are just joining because of this event, which I think is actually fair because of two things. One, the expert system has some weird side effects, like you don't have to redeem them right away, and so they can bleed out a little bit. But also, I actually don't like the idea of like giving all of these, having it be standardized that you come in, you're given a thing that lets you use stuff that you couldn't normally use, and then you do stuff with it, and then that expires. You know, you're not going to necessarily want to train the thing that the expert system is already giving you. You're going to be training the other skills that you need. So when that falls out, you're kind of left in the lurch. I don't know if I like that as much. You know, speaking of things I like and don't like, something I don't like, I made another video about it that's all don't like, which is it was too long for Rush, so I'll summarize it. Skins that are uniquely bound to a purchase, like a Plex
the bundles?
purchase. Yeah, bundle.
Like the NS.
Pisses me off. If that is the only way it ever gets distributed, you can't buy it individually for Plex. You can't buy it, whatever.
Been
Like
steaming yesterday. Then
I held it
when
in.
Fuzzy or Swift was like, "Oh yeah, those are."
Yeah, I knew I wanted to bring it up here because like it frustrates the crap out of me because like now, first of all, yes, you could buy it, but because of depending on what the Plex pack is, it can make these things radically different in price, right? So like, the Titan one might be only for the $250 deal, right? Just like the Black Ops one was. In fact, that's actually probably what it is that like the lower tier deals give you one or more of the battleships, and then the higher tier deals give you the supers and the Titans, which is really disappointing. Are
you telling me that you don't like items in the game that are somehow tied to a USD amount?
I do not like things that are in the game that have only one avenue of generation, especially if that avenue of generation is that short-lived. Like I already have a problem with things like the Yule, the old Yule skin, the black and gold one, because everybody loves it, but it was released that one time and it'll never be released again. I feel like that ends up somewhat, it does add some texture to things, but it does also kind of create a little bit of a problem. Here, you're basically like, this isn't just for money. This is pushing based on artificial scarcity and fear of missing out in order to convince people to buy $250 Plex packages. That's my problem, right? That now
You're saying that's inherently evil.
Like people are buying it because they don't care about the skin, the Plex as much as the skin. Like the completionism.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, that's why you would have a skin that's only available for 3 weeks and requires you to buy a $250 Plex package, is because now this happened with the Black Ops one. I know at least 2 people who paid CCP $250 for Plex, who absolutely did not need the Plex, but wanted that skin and was willing to buy the Plex.
Well, that's why it sells that
Right on
way.
the market.
Because if people buy it, that's why they're gonna keep selling it.
I know, but yes, and I'm going to keep being frustrated by it. Like I that is something that like I wanted to pull that. You're right. I think that is a problematic behavior.
Here's a perfect analogy. Watch your chat. Rush who new emote. It's a TARDIS morphed with a salt shaker.
That is a good one. I
So,
saw it earlier.
If you like it, you get it. And if you don't like it, you don't get it. And if people don't get it, I'll stop making them. It's that easy. What you're saying makes perfect sense. It's just
Right.
like it's like the Doctor Who collaboration. It's like it's going to happen. How people feel about it is, a conversation. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess have it be short-lived or have it be tied to a Plex deal, right? Like,
or an
it's
annual, right? Like if it's a Yule thing, you want it every year. Just pop it out every year, once a time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like theoretically speaking, like there are ways in which it could work, but I feel like we are starting to develop. This is one of those things that I feel like the things that we complain about, or the population is complaining about, end up being like often so badly formed that if CCP hears it, they're going to either write it off or see it as a victory. But meanwhile, their selling of these premium skins via, the store and now Plex sales, and then now exclusively through these Plex deals is getting increasingly skeezy, and no one's calling that out as much.
I think it's because it's more of an industry norm. Like people have called it out when it first started happening, and then like it kept happening. So enough people bought them to justify keep continuing it, and so people perceived like, well, complaining about it did no good. Not buying it myself doesn't stop the 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 other people from buying it to make it worth it. So
Yeah, and I'd also say it's not bind on account. It's you can sell it, right? So
That's
other
true.
people can buy it
Right.
through non-USD.
And Ash specified generation. It's the origination that gets him is like the only way to create them is this one interaction.
Right. Like, for instance, how we have certain skins that are sold during holidays, right? And as you pointed out, the Yule one, if we knew that every holiday, if you get packages, then you're good to go. Then you'll get it.
So,
but it being a one-time thing.
If there was a NPC vendor that sold this skin for 2 weeks and it cost essentially this much value of Plex, and in the store you could buy that specific amount of Plex, is that better because the game is selling it, or?
Yes.
Because you got to stockpile.
Because I cannot buy this skin with Plex except for from the secondary market.
Okay. So yeah, even though you specifically, if you're buying it with Plex in the game, are doing the same thing, it is different, and I get that. That's fair. That's
I could have that Plex from exclusively in-game effort.
Yeah. So
I think a really important part is to keep it balanced. Is if you have the time and you don't have to jump through ridiculous hoops to earn it in-game, versus if you have less time but you're willing to pay the money to get to get Plex, to get the skin. Like, you'll have both options, but you're not limited to only getting it by forking over real life money.
A good example of what I do like is what happened with the Angel Hex skin for the Macarial. Because the very first time that they released it, they said, hey, if you subscribe to the game, if you buy a year subscription, you get this skin for free. And then 6 months, a year later, they released it on the Plex store, right? So now you could buy it for Plex, or, whatever. It has a certain value, but the people who bought it with the part of that package got it for free. That is the kind of thing that I would like. What?
Right. Time exclusive. Like, hey,
exactly.
If you want it right now, this instant, jump through this hoop. And if you can wait, then we'll see you next year and you can, get it through another means.
But also the deal is the fact that, you're actually getting the skin thrown in, right? The skin is actually free. Whereas if the skin is exclusively gotten through this one package, then that intrinsically ties your interest in that skin to needing to get that package. Therefore, you will get that package even if you don't want it, because you know that it isn't time exclusive. You won't be able to get it, or you won't be able to directly buy it. I understand the secondary market and all that stuff. Although I will say, especially since we got other streamers here, the other point I made in that video was some of those packages is buying Omega, and to those of us who don't buy Omega anymore, it felt a little bit annoying for them to tell me I couldn't get a skin without buying Omega. What were your guys' thought about that?
You're not the target market.
I know, but I at least want to get an option towards but
Then
hold
buy it
on.
in-game.
No, I actually disagree. I disagree.
Or just buy it and don't care about the Omega.
We are the target market. Are you serious? The they should want streamers to have these skins. They should want streamers to be showing off these skins.
Okay, so as the partnership program, you get your Omega and you get 500 plex. You can spend that 500 plex on the secondary market to get that skin that you wanted.
Sure.
And you're correct in that we should be target audience, but we are definitely not the target audience. Like,
yeah, that too.
what you're describing should be happening. We should be going on. Okay, I'm a bad customer, guys. You know how often I open the NES store? Literally never.
Oh, man, I hate
If I open the NES store, it's because I misclicked. Not because I hate it, not because I'm angry about it or something. I just have no reason to ever go there. And for all the anger and rage about the new account pop up, like, hey, your ship just died. You want to spend some money? Which is, definitely a strong arm thing. Playing Eve every single day of the week for 8 years, roughly, like, I've never felt any push at all to go to the NES store. And that blows my mind. I cannot fathom how much money they're leaving on the table by not having flash sales or making them more visible.
They do.
They do.
Yeah. So making them more visible. Like,
right. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you when the last flash sale was. I couldn't tell you what it pertained to. I have no idea because there's absolutely no visibility at all. Yeah. What creates sales? Urgency. What do you do that? Make a flash sale. We have gifting, I guess, with the whole dropping in a station thing, but it's convoluted and it's messy. But if you wanted visibility in our mediums for product and selling goods, we'd have gifting. Marvel Heroes, the game I streamed in between Eve sessions for streaming, like, they had a gifting system. You're sitting there streaming, and then boom, hey streamer, here's a bunch of loot boxes. Crack them open and enjoy it. Oh my god, that's so kind of you. That was very random. I would never buy this for myself. But you're crazy and did it for me. Cool, thank you. Let's bust them on stream here and see what we get. I'm not saying Eve needs a gifting system. I'm saying it doesn't generate sales as easily as other products can that do have gifting systems like that.
It does,
and that
have
would
gifting.
be a system that would make sense what Ash is describing of having the broadcast be the QVC of their NES store.
Right. Well, they do have. You can gift things that you buy from the NES store.
Because you can input the character name, right?
Right. You can either buy it for yourself or buy it as a
notification in the bottom right-hand corner, right? Like a little, and you have to be online. So I guess they could do it that way while you're streaming because they know your character name.
Right. But so the argument that I've made that a lot of people disagree with is that, so as part of the partnership program, if skins are made available as part of an Omega package, we should just have them auto-applied to our account.
Should or could, like, if they did it, all right, cool, thanks. I don't really care. Like, I mean, should might be a bit of a reach.
So what they need to do first is fix the freaking NES store. It's so terrible, and I cannot believe a company would allow that to stand. Like, anyone who's like, CCP's only in it for the money. No, if they were, they would fix their stupid store.
Like, where does money go first? And the parts that make you more money. Like, kid, if it goes anywhere else first, you're backward.
So what part of it don't you like? The fact that it fails to authenticate? The layout?
Keep going. Keep going.
Fair enough.
The unavailable portions.
That is a very odd one.
UX, UI.
I don't know if that unavailable one is easily solved, because I suspect I know what is actually happening in the background to make that happen. But
it's so bad you can just trash it completely and just start from the ground up and fix that.
The best thing they've done in recent years is combining Aurum, right? Aurum and Plex. Yes. That's the one upshot. And it was like, and what was the upshot? Man, we really screwed this up. We need to fix it.
So, for the record, what I believe is happening is that because it's real money, it's the real money shop, there has to be a different kind of authentication token, like managed for that is supposed to be handed over from the launcher to the client, which is why, like, if you log out and log in, or, you know, like if something happens to that token, you just won't be able to access Ness. And that doesn't get fixed by just redoing the UI. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think Anthony's describing, like,
I'm saying
there's a systemic, yeah.
Now, if that is true, which I don't know for sure it is, maybe that could be better communicated. You know, like if it is if it is true that, like, closing the client and reopening it would probably fix that, then maybe you should say so. If you can identify what actually is going on, maybe you should give better information.
Prioritization too, right? Like,
because
if they're, I'm sure we're not the only ones aware of the issue. So
right,
there must be an awareness of, like, yeah, it's effed, but it's semi-functional, and for us to fix it, we would have to redo so much, and invest so much time and effort into it to do it. So
right,
there might be some balancing of, we'll get around to it.
I bet you a lot of people, though, that do experience it think that the Nest store is just down a lot, and not that something's happening to their token or whatever. Like, you know, right. I only knew that because I had 2 clients open, one that could access and one who couldn't. Right. Like, I think the vast majority, because the verbiage of it makes it sound like it's just, sorry, the server's down right now. Okay, that particular service is not available. And so you don't try to solve your own problem.
When it is sort of a you problem.
Right. It's solvable on your side, and
right.
CCP is probably not even aware of the fact that you can't connect to it.
But any barrier between the customer and the handing over of money is
the
a
fact
critical
that
failure.
I'm directly going to give CCP money, or Plex, which essentially is the same in this case, and they don't let me, is asinine.
I will agree that also the Nest Store could just use a UI revamp too.
Burn it to the ground.
For what would it be? You had the Nex, and now you have the Ness.
Neck.
What would that stand for?
I don't
Commerce? New Eden.
Sure, why not?
All right. Do we have anything
NEFT.
else?
NEFT.
Yeah.
Oh God, no.
New Eden funds transfer.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Man, I'm trying to think about whether or not there's anything else. Can't think of anything.
I would like to petition that we call all these new Whovians Who Bros.
Who Bros. I like it. I approve of this branding.
Who Bros it is. All right. Well, in that case, I guess we can wrap things up a little bit, or we can wrap things up. Thank you guys for coming and having this discussion. I think it was good. My only regret is that we didn't have, like, an actual staunch I'm mad about this person on here. So
that's your role.
Yeah.
No,
wait.
No. I actually was very satisfied with the answers I got during the discussion.
You stacked the bench.
I didn't mean. No, hold on. My offer was for anyone who wanted to come on and, like, talk about it. So I didn't stack anything.
And that concerned me more than anything, because I messaged Ashtarothi before, like, this morning before I streamed. It was like, "Are you going to moderate this at all? Because if I have to listen to, like, 12 people mouth breathe and talk over each other, like, I'm just going to do something else." And I was looking forward to this because I don't get to do this very often because of time zones.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and let everybody plug their thing, whatever they want. We'll start with Dutch Gunner. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Nope, I'm not a streamer. I'm just gonna say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the others for just keeping it polite, civil, and not a shouting contest. So yeah, this was very enjoyable.
If you want, I can give an opposing view.
Oh yes, please go on.
It's not very strong. I'm not like, it's not much of an argument, but, like, it is factual. I do want to represent like at least some of the concerns of the people who are upset.
Sure.
And even if I disagree with them, like I feel like their concerns are valid to some degree or another. They may be overreacting or reacting improperly, but I feel like their concerns deserve a voice. So
Absolutely.
it is factual that the Eve lore has remained untouched in this way by another intellectual property crossover of any form until now. Like this is new. This is different. This has changed. I don't know what changed that made CCP make this decision now. There've always been licensing and crossover deals available to them in the past. I know that they said this was opportunistic and the BBC approached them, but I am concerned that this sets a precedent, and I don't know what 10 years from now Eve will look like if it's chock full of these little crossovers that leave little bits and pieces behind.
Right. So
anyway, that's as strong of an that's as strong of an opposing view as I can give.
Well, I can back that up a little bit, which is that like the reason why I can be okay with it is because I still hold a mild optimism, and I trust CCP when they say things like, this is an anomaly. This isn't like there's no plan to like expand this into anything. It just happened to be that it was able to work, and so it did. That comforts me. Now, if you are not so optimistic, and if you have reason to not believe CCP's ability to, hold on to those kinds of ideas, like say, for instance, you're a Mimitar role player from, circa 2004 to 2008, or if you're anyone who was involved in the Triglavian invasions in a deep level after Chapter 3, you probably have reason to not be happy with CCP's answers and find them insufficient. So absolutely, there are people that the answers that were given were not sufficient to make it okay. And I think that is absolutely a valid opinion to have. Regardless of whether or not it can be okay or not, there is a certain amount of selling your soul. The phrase I kept on going back to yesterday was sacred, right? It used to be that the separation of Eve and the real world was relatively sacred. Even though there was tongue-in-cheek references, there wasn't like a big thing about it on the outside. Like even the Tom Shuttle one is still pretty like obscure, and you have to like look into it in order to find it. Them flat out saying this is Doctor Who being added to EVE Online and just simply not acknowledging it in game is a Rubicon that I don't think we've crossed before. And we'll just have to see what that does for the game moving forward, because like I said, yeah, that concern is absolutely valid. And there people that see this as a strike 2 or a strike 3, I can definitely get why you're mad.
And you made a point more than once. You said it's good that they're not just trying to write the whole thing off and say this isn't lore. It's good that they're recognizing that if it happens in the game, then it happened in Eve, and that is factual. It would be worse if they weren't doing that, because that would mean that they've just given up. So this means that they're at least attempting consistency at this point. Delicate Zero isn't resigning over this. I think we're good. Like by the way, if this truly was a problem, then that man would not still be working at that job. He does not need to be there.
Right. So I think that that does point out why people make this into a big thing, because the Eve lore is really fragile and spindly, right? We don't have like this hard canon where you read it and like now you know what everything is. It's all, stories and fragments and unreliable narrators and piecing the story together. So if you start throwing into that mix, some of this is also non-canonical, it's just like flip the table and walk away, right? Like, that being said, full disclosure, one of the reasons probably I have a bias towards being happy with this is the fact that this does confirm Eve multiverse theory. And in a very fun way, it brings me one step closer to using Eve Echo's information to piece together the pieces of New Eden lore. But yeah, I've been hunting for the smoking gun of the actual like multiple dimensions, and so CCP Fozzie's answer about that was a giddy moment for me that I don't think anybody else
Right.
quite felt the same way.
Actually, more surprised about like this being a one-off. Like when you asked them, like, okay, like this opens the box, right? This opens the door to all kinds of future collaborations. And
Right.
Fozzie was like, I mean, sure, I guess, if anyone wants to knock on our door, they're welcome to. But there's literally nothing. Like, there's nothing on the docket.
Right. This isn't the result of a push. This isn't the result of an initiative from within CCP. This is opportunistic, emergent.
Right. All that said, there is one possibility, though, if you really want to take the pessimistic side, which is that CCP Fozzie also admitted to the fact that he came in very late into the project. And so a lot of his knowledge about how it played out, especially in the early days, may be, secondhand or whatever. So who knows? Maybe there is some conspiratorial plan up above that just hasn't trickled down to him yet. But overall, it seems like the thing I keep coming back to is how exceptional the Doctor Who universe is as far as like its ability to manipulate. Like this is on the other people that have been brought up, the other powers that be that could do this kind of thing is like Doctor Strange or Q, right? This isn't just like we've created Isogen 5 and so now we can create wormholes. These are entities and IPs that can
blink
shatter
the universe into and out of existence.
Right. That shatter space and time and our understanding of things. And so the idea that the Doctor Who universe is so bizarre that it could actually pull things in from the Eve universe, I think that says more about Doctor Who than it does about us. We are the victims that just get pulled in and spit back out, and we're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" But so if it opens a door, it's a very small crack. Oh, Dr. Manhattan, that's a good one.
It's always the doctors.
Yeah, it's all the doctors.
Gotta look out for the quiet ones, man.
Yeah, so no, you're not going to get a TARDIS pod. Sorry. But yeah, I think that my point is that even if you could see this as the opening of the door, I don't see very many other opportunities that they might. The other half of this is that you don't just get to be like, oh, you know what could work? We could do it with Marvel. Like that doesn't get you an IP deal with Marvel, right?
What did Rush say yesterday? You want to? I'm not going to deliver your line. You did it really good yesterday.
I don't remember. Go for it.
The line.
Oh, right.
Yes, you do. When you were making fun of people saying like, why doesn't? So someone in chat said like, Marvel has their own game. These companies have their own games, and you were like, yeah, it's impractical to think that the leadership of these, Amazon or whatever would partner. And your line was, I'll get. Your line was, I'll get Mickey Mouse on the phone.
Oh, that's what got you. That's right. We get Mickey Mouse on the line.
Right.
I tried to hand it to you, man.
It was Firefly. Firefly, I was like, that's a dead franchise, and I remembered, oh yeah, Disney's supposed to be rebooting it, and then that's Mouse of House or House of Mouse now, so. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Like the likelihood of another collaboration, in my view, is incredibly low, reinforced by the interview with Fozzie. Like, yes, they were kind of late to the party, or not late to the party, but like the NDAs required that it didn't get to his desk until it needed to be on his desk. And to be honest, until we see how this one plays out, well, and I think that's like the biggest narrative I watch. If this is wildly successful, then it could feed the narrative of like, well, now it's just a matter of time for another collaboration. It was too successful for them to ignore and not pursue. Next time it'll be CCP knocking on doors because like, hey, this worked out really well. Whereas if it flops entirely, then all the people who got mad about it, like, see, we told you it was a shit idea. Now we've been validated, and then like nothing was lost and nothing was gained, and they're still mad. You know.
That being said, though, like if it is really successful, and so they do it again, is that a bad thing? Like if they've discovered that this is like objectively or by the metrics, you can prove that if it does make a significant change to the player base or increase in the player base, maybe they do say that this is a good way to promote.
If the level of intrusion, like once the event is done, is that there is a couple of special edition flavor items that are left behind and some memories,
right? And
like YouTube videos. If that's the future, then like I don't really have a problem with that.
Right. And that there's a lot of precedent to that. Final Fantasy 14 is a good example of that, where there'll be a crossover event, and the rewards of it are these tokens from that thing. You can get the shirt and the car from Final Fantasy 15 if you play during that event, but then when it's over, it's gone. And so the actual intrusion to the universe is relatively
so in this case, we have a little bit more because we have a few cosmetics. We have skins and the player, the avatar cosmetics. And I don't know how I feel about those. I'm on the fence.
Well,
the reason I'm on the fence is because it's kind of necessary. Like that's what you do in EVE events. You make skins.
Right. So that being said, actually, somebody brought up a bunch of examples, and sure, we could go into arguing, okay, Q could help with Star Trek. You could even argue maybe Warhammer 40K could have, a warp storm that somehow drops them into our universe or something like that. If you really wanted to throw things out the window and allow external things to come to New Eden, which again, they aren't really doing yet. But Battlestar Galactica has no mechanism to transport things between dimensions. Sorry. They barely can transport themselves through space. I said it during the interview, and I'll say it again. I will burn this IP to the ground to let Stargate come in. The Cylons are already here. We are the Cylons. The Expanse. So the problem with the Expanse crossover is that the Expanse is just a retelling of the story of the Galente and Caldari advancement for this the period of time just before the construction of the Stargate 70 years after First Contact. So, I mean, technically the Expanse is already part of the universe and has already happened, so... I mean, since 2011, nobody has ever been able to actually argue with me that we aren't Cylons.
Yeah, I couldn't argue that either. I think that's the point.
Before we open up an entire new can of worms, considering we've all been going for 3 hours, maybe it's time to wrap things up, because I don't think we have that much more to add instead of just dragging it on.
I mean, obviously we're kind of in the chilling out and poking at things thing. So, actually, let's go back to where we were at before Fonsui barged in here and at least got us to talk a little bit about the, true concerns about this whole thing. So,
yeah, but I'm sorry for doing that. By the way, I really just wanted to
No, thank you.
Because I knew there are people out there that had concerns that they didn't necessarily felt were voiced.
I was extremely disappointed that when we went down the list, nobody was like, I hate it. I was really hoping for that, honestly. So thanks for at least bringing that in. That was very valuable. That being said, Nth Dimensional, shill away.
All right. My name's Nth Dimensional. I'm the premier explorer in New Eden, as you all know or should know. And right now we're pushing to get 1,000 subs on YouTube. Good old thank you for posting that link. And smash that like button, smash that sub button. We're going to be covering this event plenty and all that good stuff. And with that, I'm peacing out.
Excellent. Rushlock, Show him how it's done.
I'm going to use it on Nth, yeah. So what Nth left out is that he is only 50 subscribers away on YouTube from hitting his partnership mark. Only 50 away. So Ashtarothi posted the link in Twitch chat. There are 206 people here. We should be able to crank this up to 270 minimum, easily. So get him up there. His original thought was that he would get his 1,000 mark sometime during or maybe at the end of the Doctor Who event. No, we've gone from 900 to 950 alone today. Hit him at the 1,000 mark. Unless we're already friends and family, get them on there. Like, they don't have to be sincere. Just crank the 1,000 mark.
We know you have your second YouTube account.
Yeah, we all know you guys have that other
Everybody's
account.
Everybody's got their YouTube alts. They multi-box.
That's right. 957, that's good. 13 more. Get him over 970. Chat, you can do it. And yeah. So I'm Rushlock. I stream on Twitch here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 Eastern Standard Time. Twitch.tv/Rushlock. I run basically like a live help desk. New players, returning players, players coming in from one activity, trying to transition to another activity, looking for some information and some guidance. And I point them in the right direction. That's my usual goal.
Very cool. Well, Fonsui, since you popped in,
the most abusive help desk ever.
Fonsui, do you have anything to shill for?
No, I have nothing to shill for. Maybe vote for me eventually for CSM if I ever do that.
That's what I thought Dutch Gunner was going to say.
I don't want to start too early with spamming that message.
Yeah, no, I take that back. I take that back. Definitely vote for me for CSM if I eventually decide to do that.
Nice. All right. And of course, I've been Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Show. I broadcast on most weekdays from roughly 1800 to 2100. I discuss EVE Online, and all my stuff goes over to, well, not all my stuff, but the highlights of my shows and the segments go over to my YouTube. They're really long, but informative. Make sure to head over there and give it a subscribe and watch my videos and like and comment on them to help out the algorithm gods to, make it all successful. And I want to thank everybody who came and participated. It was a really good discussion. I feel like there a lot of really good points were made, and it was very salient. So yeah, thank you all for taking part. And honestly, thank you, chat, for the chat yesterday was pretty non-productive. I'll put it that way. So chat today kept it pretty cool, and it really showed off my argument from earlier, which is that the more being loud and angry does communicate that you're angry, but you lose the message, right? So I feel like we were able to get a lot more done and talk about a lot of really good details. So let's see. Do I want to just wrap things up for the show? I think so. Sure, why not? With all that said, I've been Ashtarothi, and on behalf of Dutch Gunner, Fonsui, Nth Dimensional, Rushlock, and myself, this has been the Eve Universe Show. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in space.